Hello guys, welcome to Cross Harry. So in this video, we will see what if Harry was actually a demigod son of Hades and Percy Jackson rescued him from the cupboard. If you enjoy these kinds of stories, don't forget to show us some love by hitting the like button and subscribing to the channel. Your support means the world to us. Now, let's start the story. Chapter 1, The Boy in the Shadows. Percy Jackson was having the worst vacation ever, and that was saying something considering his track record. Remind me again why we're in suburban England chasing monster signals instead of enjoying summer at camp. Percy grumbled, tapping his pen, riptide in disguise, against his thigh as he surveyed the identical houses of Privet Drive. Annabeth rolled her eyes, adjusting her Yankees cap. Because Chiron said there's been unusual monster activity centered around this neighborhood for years, but it never moves. That's not normal monster behavior. Nothing about being a demigod is normal, Percy muttered, but he kept his eyes sharp. The late afternoon sun beat down on the perfectly manicured lawns and cookie-cutter houses. This place gives me the creeps. It's too perfect. That's British suburbs for you, Annabeth said, scanning a bronze device Daedalus had designed. Wait, I'm getting something strong. Really strong. Coming from, number 4. Percy squinted at the house. Nothing about it looked special. Same neat garden, same boring facade as all the others. But he'd learned to trust Annabeth's instincts, and her magical gadgets. What kind of monster hides in suburbia for years? Percy asked. Maybe it's not a monster, Annabeth said quietly. Maybe it's a demigod who doesn't know what they are. Percy's expression shifted. He knew all too well what it was like to be a confused kid with unexplainable powers. Let's check it out. Quietly. They approached the house cautiously, pretending to be ordinary teenagers taking an afternoon stroll. Through the windows, Percy spotted a massive man with a mustache like a walrus, a horse-faced woman, and what appeared to be a small whale in human form, a boy about Percy's age but 3 times as wide. Normal mortals, Percy whispered. Probably. Annabeth frowned. The signal's still strong. Maybe the basement. A car pulled into the driveway of number 6, and a nosy-looking woman eyed them suspiciously. We need to come back when it's darker, Percy decided. Less chance of, he broke off as a prickle ran up his spine, the unmistakable sense that something was wrong. Not monster wrong, but wrong nonetheless. You feel that? He asked Annabeth. She nodded. It's like, sadness. Deep sadness. Percy had faced gods and monsters, but something about this feeling cut straight through him. I'm going to take a closer look. Percy, but he was already moving, circling toward the back of the house. The feeling grew stronger, a mix of pain, loneliness, and something else. Something like, death. Not Thanatos death, but the lingering aura of someone who'd spent too much time around the departed. Behind the house, as the family inside sat down to dinner, Percy peered through windows. Kitchen. Living room. What looked like a guest bedroom. Nothing unusual. Then he noticed something odd, a cupboard under the stairs, with a small vent. And more disturbing, a lock on the outside. Who puts a lock on the outside of a cupboard? Percy, Annabeth hissed, appearing beside him. We should go. Come back tonight. Hang on, Percy replied. I need to check something. He moved to the small vent on the cupboard door and knelt down. Peering inside, he expected to see cleaning supplies, maybe a vacuum. Instead, he saw an eye. A human eye, bright green and startled, staring back at him. Percy jerked back, nearly falling over. There's a kid in there. What? Annabeth dropped beside him, looking through the vent. Oh my gods. The eye had disappeared, but they could hear movement inside, something small shifting on what sounded like a thin mattress. Percy's blood boiled. They locked a kid in a cupboard. Percy, we need to think about this. But Percy was already moving toward the back door. Years of fighting monsters had taught him to pick his battles, but some things were black and white. Locking kids in cupboards. Definitely on his smash down the door list. Before Annabeth could stop him, Percy tried the door handle. Locked. Stand back, he said grimly. Wait, Annabeth began, but Percy had already uncapped Riptide. The pen transformed into a glowing bronze sword. With a controlled swing, Percy sliced through the lock mechanism. The door swung open. So much for stealth, Annabeth muttered, drawing her own knife. Let's make this quick. They slipped inside the kitchen just as a bellow came from the dining room. What was that noise? Petunia, did you leave the back door unlocked again? Heavy footsteps approached. Percy and Annabeth ducked behind the kitchen island as an enormous man with a purple face stormed in. Vernon Dursley squinted at the broken lock, his face changing from purple to an alarming shade of crimson. Burglars, he roared. Dudley, Petunia, stay back. Percy glanced at Annabeth. Keep him busy. I'm getting the kid. Before she could argue, Percy darted into the hallway while Vernon was still examining the door. He reached the cupboard and yanked at the lock. It broke easily in his hands, perks of demigod strength. He pulled the door open and froze. Inside, curled on a thin, stained mattress, was a small boy. He couldn't have been more than 10 years old, with messy black hair, oversized clothes hanging off his skinny frame, and those startling green eyes, now wide with fear. A lightning-shaped scar cut across his forehead. Hey, Percy said softly, kneeling down. I'm Percy. I'm here to help. The boy stared at him, disbelieving. Are you real? The question broke Percy's heart. Yeah, I'm real. And we're getting you out of here. What's your name? Harry, the boy whispered. Harry Potter. From the kitchen came the sounds of Annabeth creating a distraction, something crashing, Vernon yelling. They didn't have much time. Nice to meet you, Harry. Listen, those people in there, are they your family? Harry nodded reluctantly. My aunt and uncle. And cousin. And they keep you in here? Percy's grip tightened on Riptide. It's where I sleep, Harry said, as if this was perfectly normal. Percy took a deep breath. Not anymore. You're coming with us. Harry looked hesitant. But Uncle Vernon can't stop me, Percy finished. Trust me, I've dealt with way scarier guys than him. Ever fought a minotaur in his underwear? Harry blinked. A what? Never mind. We'll have time for stories later. Percy offered his hand. Coming. After a moment's hesitation, Harry reached out and took it. His fingers were thin but surprisingly strong. As their hands touched, Percy felt something, a cold chill, like stepping into a shadow. The feeling of death he'd sensed earlier intensified. This kid was definitely a demigod. And if Percy had to guess, he had a pretty good idea who the godly parent might be. Percy helped Harry out of the cupboard just as Annabeth backed into the hallway, knife held defensively. Ah, there you are, she said to Percy, eyeing Harry with surprise. Is this the source of that signal? Pretty sure, Percy nodded. Harry, this is Annabeth. Hi, Harry said shyly. We need to go, Annabeth urged as Vernon Dursley appeared in the kitchen doorway, now wielding a fireplace poker and looking murderous. Boy, he bellowed when he spotted Harry. Get back in your cupboard. And you two hooligans get out of my house. Yeah, that's not happening, Percy said, stepping in front of Harry protectively. We know what you've been doing to him. Vernon's face went from red to white and back to purple. This is none of your business. The boy is disturbed, dangerous, we took him in out of the goodness of our hearts, save it, Percy cut him off. We're leaving, and he's coming with us. Vernon charged forward with surprising speed for someone his size, swinging the poker. Percy deflected it easily with Riptide, the celestial bronze slicing through the metal like butter. Vernon was left holding a useless stub, his eyes bulging. "What, how?" he sputtered. "Percy," Annabeth warned. "Outside. Now." Percy nodded, turning to Harry. "Grab anything you want to take with you." Harry hesitated, then darted back into the cupboard. He emerged seconds later with a small bundle wrapped in a pillowcase, everything he owned in the world. The sight made Percy's jaw clench. He'd thought his own childhood was rough, but at least he'd had his mom. Petunia Dursley appeared behind her husband, her horse-like face contorted with fear. "Vernon, they can't take him, what about the you-know-what? The protections?" "Shut up, Petunia." Vernon hissed. Annabeth's eyes narrowed. "Protections? What protections?" "Nothing." Vernon blustered. "The boy stays here." "I think Harry can decide for himself," Percy said, turning to the boy. "What do you say, Harry? Wanna stay in a cupboard, or see what's out there in the world?" Harry looked at Percy, then at his aunt and uncle, then back at Percy. His green eyes hardened with a determination that seemed too old for his young face. "I want to leave," he said firmly. "That settles it," Percy smiled. "Let's go." Vernon made another lunge, this time directly at Harry. "You ungrateful little," what happened next shocked everyone. As Vernon's meaty hand reached for Harry's arm, the boy flinched away, and the hallway plunged into darkness. Not just normal darkness, a thick, inky blackness that seemed to swallow light. Cold swept through the house, and Percy felt that familiar chill of death magic. When the darkness receded seconds later, Vernon was sprawled on his back, looking as if he'd seen a ghost. Petunia was shrieking. And Harry stood wide-eyed, staring at his own hands. Did I do that?" he whispered. "Oh yeah," Percy said, unable to keep the admiration from his voice. "You definitely did. And that's our cue to exit." He guided Harry toward the door while Annabeth covered their retreat. Outside, the summer evening had begun to fade into twilight. Percy led them quickly down Privet Drive, wanting to put as much distance between Harry and that house as possible. Once they were several blocks away, Annabeth pulled them into the shadow of a large tree. "Okay," she said, studying Harry intently. "That was definitely underworld magic. I've seen Nico do similar things." Harry looked confused. "Underworld? Nico? I don't understand. How did I do, whatever that was?" Percy exchanged glances with Annabeth. "It's complicated. But basically, you know how in old Greek myths there were gods who sometimes had kids with mortals?" Harry nodded hesitantly. "Those myths are real. The gods are real. And those kids, demigods, they're real too." Percy pointed to himself. "I'm one. Annabeth's one. And based on what we just saw, you're one too." Harry stared, his mouth slightly open. That's impossible. Says the kid who just turned the hallway into midnight," Percy pointed out. "Haven't weird things always happened around you? Things you couldn't explain?" Harry's expression shifted as memories clearly surfaced. I ended up on the school roof once when Dudley's gang was chasing me. I made the glass at a zoo disappear. And my hair grew back overnight after Aunt Petunia cut it all off. Classic demigod stuff, Annabeth nodded. Your reflexes take over when you're in danger. But who, Harry began, then stopped, his young face trying to process too much at once. Who's your godly parent? Percy finished for him. Based on that shadow trick, I'd bet my blue cookies it's Hades. God of the underworld. The dead? Harry whispered. And wealth, technically, Annabeth added. But yes, primarily death and the underworld. Harry looked down at his hands again. That makes sense, I guess. Everyone around me always dies. The simple statement, delivered with such matter-of-fact acceptance, hit Percy like a punch to the gut. He knelt down to meet Harry's eyes. Hey. That's not how it works. Being Hades' kid doesn't make people die. And whatever happened to people around you, that wasn't your fault. Harry's eyes glistened with unshed tears. My parents died when I was a baby. Car crash, my aunt said. That's how I got this. He pushed his hair back, revealing the lightning-shaped scar. Percy and Annabeth exchanged glances again. That didn't sound like a car crash scar. We'll figure all this out, Percy promised. Right now, we need to get you somewhere safe. There's a place for kids like us, Camp Half-Blood. You'll be protected there. In America? Harry asked, surprising them both. Yeah, Percy nodded. How'd you know? Your accent, Harry said simply. Annabeth smiled. Smart kid. But it's all the way across the ocean, Harry pointed out. We've got ways of traveling, Percy assured him. But first, we need to, a low growl interrupted him. At the end of the street, a massive shape slunk under a streetlight, a dog the size of a rhino, with glowing red eyes. Hellhound, Annabeth breathed, drawing her knife. Percy uncapped Riptide again. Harry, stay behind us. What is that thing? Harry gasped. Monster, Percy explained tersely. They can smell demigods. Especially powerful ones. The Hellhound charged, its massive paws shaking the ground. Percy shoved Harry behind a parked car and leapt to meet it, swinging Riptide in a glittering arc. The blade connected, but only grazed the monster's shoulder. It snapped at Percy, nearly taking his arm off. Annabeth darted in from the side, her knife finding a weak spot in the Hellhound's flank. It howled and spun, knocking her aside with a powerful paw. Annabeth! Percy shouted as she hit the ground hard. The Hellhound turned its attention to the car where Harry was hiding. It seemed particularly interested in him, more than a normal monster should be. It's after Harry specifically, Annabeth called, scrambling to her feet. Percy, we need to, the rest of her words were drowned out as the Hellhound leapt onto the car, crushing its roof. Harry scrambled away, terror on his face. Percy lunged, driving Riptide into the monster's haunch. It howled again but stayed focused on Harry, who had backed against a garden wall with nowhere to run. Harry! Percy yelled. The shadows! Use them like before. Harry's eyes widened with understanding. He closed his eyes, face scrunching in concentration as the Hellhound charged. For a heartbeat, nothing happened. Then darkness exploded outward from Harry's small form, thicker, colder, and more substantial than before. The shadows twisted like living things, wrapping around the Hellhound's legs, halting its charge. The monster struggled, snarling and snapping, but the shadows held it fast. Percy didn't waste the opportunity. With a running leap, he drove Riptide straight into the Hellhound's chest. The blade sank to the hilt, and the monster dissolved into golden dust that scattered in the evening breeze. The shadows receded, slithering back to Harry like obedient pets before dissipating. The boy stood trembling, his face pale with exhaustion. That was awesome! Percy exclaimed, capping Riptide. Seriously, did you see that? The shadows he made grabbing motions with his hands. Percy, Annabeth interrupted, nodding at Harry, who looked about ready to collapse. Right, sorry. Percy moved quickly to support the boy. Using powers like that takes a lot out of you when you're not used to it. You'll get stronger with practice. There are more of those things? Harry asked weakly. Unfortunately, Annabeth said, checking the street for curious mortals. Thankfully, the British seemed as good as Americans at not noticing supernatural battles. And that one was hunting you specifically. Which means we need to move, Percy added. That wasn't a random attack. How are we getting to America? Harry asked, leaning against Percy. I don't have a passport or anything. Annabeth pulled out a golden drachma. We've got faster ways to travel. But first, we need to find some water and make a call. They found a decorative fountain in a small park a few blocks away. While Annabeth used the water to create a rainbow and toss in her drachma, Percy sat with Harry on a bench. You holding up okay? Percy asked. Harry nodded, though he still looked shaken. That thing, it wanted to kill me. Yeah, monsters are like that with us. Being a demigod comes with some downsides. Why did no one ever tell me? Harry asked. About any of this? My aunt and uncle always said magic wasn't real. Percy raised an eyebrow. Magic? We're talking about being a demigod. Though I guess godly powers could seem like magic. Harry frowned. But what about all the strange letters that keep coming? My uncle keeps destroying them before I can read them. Letters? Percy exchanged glances with Annabeth, who was in the middle of an iris message with Chiron. What letters? They started coming a few days ago, Harry explained. Addressed exactly to me, the cupboard under the stairs and everything. Uncle Vernon went mental. That's why he locked me in today. Another one came this morning. That's not typical demigod stuff, Percy said slowly. Usually, satyrs find us, not letters. Annabeth finished her call and rejoined them. Chiron's sending Mrs. O'Leary. She can shadow travel us back to camp. Mrs. O'Leary? Harry asked. Percy grinned. My pet hellhound. The friendly kind. Chiron's our activities director at camp. Harry looked overwhelmed. This is a lot to take in. Tell me about it, Percy agreed. When I found out, I was fighting the Minotaur in my underwear. You mentioned that before, Harry said. Did that really happen? First day of camp, Percy nodded. Not my finest moment. A smile tugged at Harry's lips, the first they'd seen. It transformed his face, making him look like the child he was supposed to be. So this camp, Harry said hesitantly, it's for people like us. Demigods? Exactly, Annabeth confirmed. It's the only safe place for half-bloods in the United States. The magical boundaries keep monsters out. And there are others like me there. Children of Hades? Percy and Annabeth exchanged another glance. There's one, Percy said carefully. Nico D'Angelo. He's a bit older than you. But children of the big three, Zeus, Poseidon, and Hades, are rare. Big three. The three most powerful gods, Annabeth explained. Their children tend to be exceptionally powerful. And attract more monsters. Great, Harry muttered. Hey, look on the bright side, Percy said cheerfully. At least you're not stuck in a cupboard anymore. Harry's smile returned, stronger this time. True. A loud howl split the night, but this one was different from the hellhounds, friendlier, somehow. Moments later, an enormous black shape bounded into the park, tongue lolling and tail wagging. Mrs. O'Leary. Percy called, standing up. Good girl. Harry stared in amazement as Percy approached the massive hellhound, easily the size of a garbage truck, and scratched behind her ears. She woofed happily, her tail knocking over a trash can. That's your pet? Harry asked, wide-eyed. Yep, Percy said proudly. Harry, meet Mrs. O'Leary. Mrs. O'Leary, this is Harry. The hellhound bounded over to Harry, who flinched back instinctively. But she just sniffed him curiously, then gave his face a massive lick that left him dripping. She likes you, Percy laughed. Must smell the underworld on you. Harry wiped his face, laughing despite himself. Does she eat people? Only bad ones, Percy said with a wink. And monsters. We should go, Annabeth urged. The mist will only hide her from mortals for so long. Percy helped Harry climb onto Mrs. O'Leary's back, then hoisted himself up with Annabeth behind him. Hold on tight, he warned. Shadow travel's a bit like being shot out of a cannon into cold spaghetti. What does that even mean? Harry asked, gripping the Hellhound's fur. You'll see. Percy called as Mrs. O'Leary bounded forward, straight toward the shadow of a large oak tree. Next stop, Camp Half-Blood. Instead of crashing into the tree, Mrs. O'Leary dissolved into the shadow, taking them with her. Harry's startled yelp was swallowed by the darkness. Shadow travel was worse than Percy remembered. Cold, dark, and fast, like being stretched into nothingness and snapped back into reality. They emerged on Half-Blood Hill beside Talia's pine tree, the golden fleece glittering on its lowest branch. Mrs. O'Leary staggered slightly, then flopped onto her side, panting. Shadow travel across an ocean had tired even her out. Good girl, Percy patted her flank. Rest now. Harry slid off shakily, looking like he might be sick. That was intense. You get used to it, Percy assured him, though he wasn't entirely sure that was true. Annabeth steadied Harry as he swayed on his feet. Welcome to Camp Half-Blood, Harry. Your new home. Harry looked up at the pine tree, then down the hill to where the cabins glowed in the evening light. The climbing wall spewed lava in the distance, and satyrs played pipes in the strawberry fields. His eyes grew wide as he took it all in. It's beautiful, he whispered. Percy smiled, remembering his own first glimpse of camp. Yeah, it is. They made their way down the hill, Percy supporting Harry, who was still weak from his shadow outburst and the shadow travel. Campers stopped what they were doing to stare at the newcomer, a small, skinny boy in oversized clothes with a lightning scar on his forehead. Chiron met them at the big house, his horse half in full view. Harry's jaw dropped. You're a centaur, Chiron finished with a warm smile. Chiron, trainer of heroes. And you must be Harry Potter. Harry nodded, still staring. We found him in England, Percy explained. Locked in a cupboard by his mortal relatives. Chiron's expression darkened. I see. Unfortunately, such treatment is not uncommon for young demigods. But you're safe now, Harry. He's Hades' kid, Percy added. Did the whole shadow control thing when we were attacked. Chiron's eyebrows rose. Indeed. That is, unexpected. Hades has not claimed another child since Nico and Bianca. He hasn't been claimed officially yet, Annabeth pointed out. A technicality, I'm sure, Chiron said, studying Harry thoughtfully. The resemblance is there, the eyes are different, but the aura of death is unmistakable. Harry shifted uncomfortably. So what happens now? Now, Chiron said kindly, you rest. We'll get you settled in Hermes' cabin for tonight, as is tradition until your father claims you. Then tomorrow, we'll begin your training. I have more questions, Harry said. About my parents, and these letters that keep coming, and we'll answer them all, Chiron assured him. But first, food and rest. You've had quite a day. Percy couldn't argue with that. He led Harry to the dining pavilion, where dinner was just beginning. The campers all turned to stare at the newcomer, whispers spreading quickly. Who's the new kid? Another Hermes unclaimed? He's so small. Check out that scar. Harry shrank under the attention, instinctively moving closer to Percy. Don't worry about them, Percy said. They're just curious. We don't get many new campers who arrive by Hellhound. They joined the Hermes table, where Connor and Travis Stoll immediately made room for Harry. Fresh meat. Travis grinned. Welcome to Cabin 11, kid. Home of the awesome. Temporarily, Percy specified. We're pretty sure he's Hades. The Stoll's eyebrows shot up. Another underworld kid? Nico's gonna love that. Speaking of Nico, Percy noticed the son of Hades at his solitary table, watching Harry with an intensity that was unsettling. When he caught Percy looking, Nico quickly glanced away. Harry followed Percy's gaze. Is that, my brother? Half-brother, technically, Percy corrected. And yeah, that's Nico. Don't mind the doom and gloom, he's actually a good guy once you get past the whole "I command the dead" thing. Harry nodded, but continued watching Nico with a mix of curiosity and apprehension. Dinner proceeded normally, or as normally as anything at Camp Half-Blood ever did. Harry gasped when nymphs emerged from the trees to serve food, and again when campers scraped portions into the central fire as offerings to the gods. "What do I do?" he whispered to Percy. "Offer some of your food to your godly parent," Percy explained. "In your case, Hades." Harry approached the fire hesitantly, scraping a portion of his brisket into the flames. "For Hades," he murmured. "My father." The word sounded strange on his lips, as if he'd never said "father" before. Given what Percy had seen of his life with the Dursleys, maybe he hadn't. The fire flared higher for a moment, and a cold breeze swept through the pavilion. Several campers looked up nervously. Harry returned to his seat, looking unsure if he'd done something wrong. "It's fine," Percy assured him. "The gods listen when we make offerings. That was just Hades acknowledging yours." After dinner came the campfire, with sing-alongs led by the Apollo cabin. Harry sat between Percy and Annabeth, watching the magical fire change colors with the camp's mood. Currently, it burned a curious mix of orange excitement and purple anxiety, reflecting the campers' feelings about the new arrival. As the final song ended, Chiron stamped his hoof for attention. "Heroes. Today we welcome a new camper to our ranks, Harry Potter, from England." All eyes turned to Harry, who shrank into his oversized shirt. "As is our tradition, he will stay in Hermes' cabin until claimed, though we have reason to believe," Chiron's words cut off as gasps rippled through the gathering. A cold wind swept through the amphitheater, extinguishing the fire. In the sudden darkness, a symbol glowed above Harry's head, a helm of darkness, the symbol of Hades. "It is determined," Chiron announced, his voice solemn as he knelt. The other campers followed suit, even Percy. "Hades, Lord of the Dead, ruler of the underworld. Hail, Harry Potter, son of the Lord of Shadows." Harry stood frozen, staring up at the fading symbol. Across the amphitheater, Nico had risen to his feet, his face a mask of shock and something else, betrayal? Jealousy? As the symbol faded, the fire reignited itself, burning a deep, eerie purple. The silence stretched uncomfortably until Percy stood and clapped Harry on the shoulder. "Congratulations," he said. "Looks like you're officially moved into Cabin 13. Harry nodded numbly. "What does this mean?" "It means your father has acknowledged you as his son," Chiron explained, rising. "A rare honor from Lord Hades." "Will I meet him?" Harry asked. An awkward silence followed. Percy exchanged glances with Annabeth. "The gods don't typically hang out with their kids," Percy said gently. "Divine laws and all that." "Oh." Harry's face fell slightly, but he nodded as if this was what he'd expected. "Of course." Nico approached them, his dark eyes fixed on Harry. The younger boy straightened, meeting his half-brother's gaze with surprising steadiness for someone who'd been locked in a cupboard that morning. "So," Nico said, his voice carefully neutral. "Another child of Hades." "Hi," Harry said simply. "I'm Harry." Nico studied him for a moment. "Nico D'Angelo. I guess we're sharing a cabin now." It wasn't the warmest welcome, but it wasn't outright hostility either. Percy counted that as a win. "I'll show Harry to Cabin 13, Nico told Chiron. "Come on, new brother. Time to see your new home." As they walked away, Harry glanced back at Percy with a look that was part excitement, part trepidation. Percy gave him an encouraging thumbs up. "Think they'll be okay?" Annabeth asked as they watched the two sons of Hades disappear into the darkness. "Nico's a good kid underneath all that brooding," Percy said. "And Harry seems tough. They'll figure it out." "I hope so," Annabeth sighed. Because I have a feeling things are about to get complicated. When are they not? Percy grinned, but his mind was already racing with questions. Why had Hades broken his oath and had another child? Who was Harry's mother, really? And what were those mysterious letters that kept finding him? At cabin 13, Harry stood in the doorway, taking in his new home. Unlike the bright, airy cabins of Apollo or Hermes, the Hades cabin was built of solid obsidian, with torches of green Greek fire flanking the entrance. Inside, the walls glowed with the same eerie light, illuminating a space that was both opulent and somber. Elegant beds with silk sheets stood against one wall, while a fountain of dark water burbled in the corner. That's for Iris messages, Nico explained, noticing Harry's curious gaze. And offerings to the dead. It's nice, Harry said, trying to find the right words. After a cupboard under the stairs, even a gloomy cabin seemed like a palace. Nico shrugged. It's home. Pick any bed except that one. He pointed to one that clearly had his few possessions scattered around it. Harry moved to the bed furthest from Nico's, setting down his pathetic bundle of belongings. He unwrapped the pillowcase, revealing a few broken toy soldiers, a cracked pair of glasses, and a mysterious silver cloak that seemed to shimmer in the green light. What's that? Nico asked, eyeing the cloak. I don't know, Harry admitted. It was my father's, my mortal father's, I guess. My aunt gave it to me by mistake once when she was throwing out old things. I hid it before she realized. He stroked the fabric reverently. It felt like water woven into cloth. Nico approached, his curiosity overcoming his reservations. May I? Harry nodded, and Nico touched the cloak. His eyes widened. This is powerful magic, he said. Not Greek, something else. Put it on. Hesitantly, Harry swung the cloak around his shoulders. Nico gasped as Harry's body disappeared, leaving only his head floating in midair. An invisibility cloak. Harry exclaimed, looking down at his missing body. Wicked. Nico's expression was troubled. That's not just any invisibility cloak. I can still sense you, I can always sense living souls, but it's like you're muted. Shrouded from death itself. He studied Harry with new interest. Who was your mother? Lily Potter, Harry said. She died when I was a baby. I don't remember her. And you're sure Hades is your father? Not your godfather or something weird? Harry blinked. I don't know. Percy and Annabeth just said I felt like death. And then I did that shadow thing. Show me, Nico demanded. Harry hesitated. I don't really know how I did it. It just happened when I was scared. Try, Nico insisted. Focus on the shadows in the corner there. Imagine them coming to you, like they're part of you. Harry concentrated, his young face scrunching with effort. For a moment, nothing happened. Then, slowly, the shadows in the corner stirred, reaching toward him like tentative fingers before retreating. Not bad, Nico admitted, looking both impressed and unsettled. You're definitely Hades' kid. But there's something different about your aura. Something extra. Before Harry could ask what that meant, a soft knock came at the cabin door. Percy poked his head in. Hey, just checking in. Everything cool? We're fine, Nico said quickly, his walls going back up. Just getting acquainted. Percy entered anyway, eyeing the invisibility cloak Harry still wore. Whoa, what's that? Some kind of Hades magic? It was my father's, James Potter's, Harry explained, removing the cloak. It makes you invisible. Sweet, Percy grinned. That'll come in handy for capture the flag. Capture the what? Harry asked. Camp game, Percy explained. Basically, armed combat in the woods. You'll love it. Harry didn't look entirely convinced, but he nodded. Listen, Percy continued, Chiron wants to see you in the morning, Harry. Said something about your unusual situation. Am I in trouble? Harry asked immediately, his shoulders tensing. What? No. Percy reassured him. Nothing like that. He just wants to figure some things out. Like those letters you mentioned. At the mention of letters, Nico raised an eyebrow. What letters? Harry explained about the mysterious correspondence that his uncle had been destroying. That's not normal demigod procedure, Nico frowned. We don't send letters. That's what I said, Percy nodded. Something else is going on with Harry. Story of my life, Harry muttered. Percy laughed. Kid, you have no idea how much I relate to that. Get some sleep, both of you. Tomorrow's going to be a busy day. After Percy left, Harry changed into a camp t-shirt Annabeth had found for him. It hung past his knees like a dress. We'll get you proper clothes tomorrow, Nico said, noticing Harry's embarrassment. The camp store has everything. Thanks, Harry said, climbing into bed. The silk sheets felt impossibly soft after his cupboard mattress. And thanks for, not hating me for suddenly appearing. Nico looked surprised. Why would I hate you? I don't know. For intruding. For being another, son of Hades when you were the only one. Nico was quiet for a long moment. It's strange, he finally admitted. I thought I was alone. Bianca, my sister, she died last year. I thought I was Hades' only living child. I'm sorry about your sister, Harry said quietly. Yeah, Nico replied. Me too. He hesitated, then added, but I guess having a brother might not be the worst thing. It wasn't exactly a warm welcome, but Harry smiled anyway. Good night, Nico. Good night, Harry. As Harry drifted off to sleep, exhausted from the day's events, shadows gathered around his bed protectively. In the other bed, Nico watched this unconscious display of power with a mix of curiosity and concern. Something was different about Harry Potter. And Nico D'Angelo intended to find out what. Morning came with a shaft of sunlight somehow penetrating the obsidian walls of cabin 13. Harry blinked awake, momentarily disoriented by the unfamiliar surroundings. Then yesterday's events came rushing back, the rescue, the Hellhound, Camp Half-Blood, and the revelation that he was a son of Hades. He sat up, looking across the cabin. Nico's bed was empty, already neatly made. Good, you're up. Harry startled. Nico stood in the doorway, already dressed in his black jeans and t-shirt, a silver skull ring glinting on his finger. Chiron's waiting at the big house, Nico continued. I was about to wake you. What time is it? Harry asked, scrambling out of bed. Almost 9. Don't worry, there's no strict schedule here for new campers. Get dressed. I found some clothes that might fit you better. He tossed a bundle onto Harry's bed, a camp t-shirt that looked closer to Harry's size, plus jeans and shoes. The Aphrodite cabin helped, Nico explained, seeing Harry's questioning look. They have ways of making things fit. The clothes did indeed fit perfectly. Harry changed quickly, marveling at having clothes that actually felt like they were made for him instead of hand-me-downs from Dudley. Thanks, he said sincerely. Nico shrugged. Can't have my brother looking like he's wearing a tent. Let's go. The word brother sent a warm feeling through Harry's chest. He followed Nico out of the cabin into the bright summer morning. Camp Half-Blood looked even more amazing by daylight, the strawberry fields gleaming in the sun, satyrs and nymphs wandering freely, young demigods practicing sword fighting in the arena. This place is incredible, Harry breathed. It grows on you, Nico admitted. Best part is the monsters can't get in. Worst part is the sing-alongs. Harry laughed, then sobered. Do you think I'll have to go back? To the Dursleys, I mean. Nico's expression darkened. No. You're a demigod. This is your home now. He hesitated. Unless you want to go back. Gods, no, Harry said quickly, the unfamiliar oath slipping out naturally. I never want to see Privet drive again. They reached the big house, where Chiron waited in wheelchair form on the porch. Percy and Annabeth were there too, along with a pudgy man in a Hawaiian shirt who radiated power despite his unimpressive appearance. Ah, young Mr. Potter, the pudgy man drawled, studying Harry over a Diet Coke. The new corpse breath Jr. How delightful. Lord Dionysus, Chiron said reproachfully. Please. Harry, this is Mr. D, our camp director. A god? Harry guessed, recognizing the aura of power. The god of wine, Dionysus corrected with a sniff. Sentenced to this summer camp purgatory for a mere century. As if the first batch of brats wasn't bad enough, now we have British ones. Despite Mr. D's rudeness, Harry found himself smiling. After Uncle Vernon's blustering cruelty, there was something almost refreshing about the god's straightforward disdain. Sorry to be a bother, Harry said politely. Dionysus blinked, apparently surprised by the lack of offense. Well. At least you have manners. Unlike certain sea spawn I could mention. Percy rolled his eyes. Good to see you too, Mr. D. Chiron cleared his throat. Harry, please sit. We have much to discuss about your unique situation. Harry took a seat at the table, Nico standing behind him like a shadow. First, Chiron said, I must ask, have you ever experienced anything magical? Beyond the demigod abilities you displayed yesterday? Harry thought about it. I've made things happen when I was angry or scared. Glass disappearing, jumping onto roofs, hair growing back overnight. But I thought all demigods did that. To some extent, Chiron nodded. But there's something different about your aura. Something beyond typical demigod abilities. That's what I felt too, Nico added. Last night. It's like, witch magic, almost. Mr. D snorted. Hecate's handiwork, no doubt. Always meddling. Hecate? Harry asked. Goddess of magic, Annabeth explained. She has her own, communities of magic users. Separate from the Greek world, mostly. Which brings us to these letters you mentioned, Chiron said. Can you describe them more precisely? Harry frowned, trying to remember. They had green ink. And they were addressed exactly to where I was, the cupboard under the stairs at first, then, the smallest bedroom, after Uncle Vernon moved me when the letters started coming. Hogwarts, Mr. D said suddenly, surprising everyone. You know about them? Chiron asked. Dionysus shrugged. I am a god. We keep tabs on all magic users, even the wand wavers. Quaint little community Hecate started in the Dark Ages. They think they're completely separate from us, but they're really just a specialized branch of her children and legacies. Are you saying I'm not a demigod? Harry asked, confused. Oh, you're definitely corpse breath spawn, Mr. D assured him. That death aura is unmistakable. But you're something else too. A wizard, probably. Mixing mortal magic with godly blood, always a recipe for disaster. He sounded almost gleeful at the prospect. A wizard, Harry repeated, testing the word. Like Merlin. Exactly like Merlin, Chiron nodded. One of Hecate's most famous children. If these letters are from Hogwarts School of Witchcraft and Wizardry, then it seems you have a foot in both worlds, Harry. But how? I thought demigods had one mortal parent and one god parent. Your mother must have been a legacy of Hecate, Annabeth theorized. A descendant with magical blood. It would explain your dual heritage. So I'm a demigod and a wizard? Harry asked, trying to wrap his mind around this new complication. It appears so, Chiron confirmed. A unique combination, to be sure. And one that may explain the exceptional power you've already displayed. Percy whistled. No wonder that Hellhound was so determined to get you. Which raises another concern, Chiron said gravely. Harry's scent will be doubly powerful. Even Camp Half-Blood's boundaries may not fully shield him from detection. Great, Harry muttered. More monsters. More training, Nico corrected, surprising everyone with his supportive tone. If you're going to be a walking monster magnet, you need to learn to defend yourself. Nico's right, Percy agreed. And we'll all help you. That's what camp is for. Harry felt a surge of gratitude. Less than 24 hours ago, he'd been locked in a cupboard, friendless and alone. Now he had a brother, mentors, and an entire camp of demigods willing to help him. There's one more thing, Chiron said, pulling something from beneath the table. This arrived for you this morning. It was a letter with green ink, addressed to Mr. H., Potter Cabin 13, Camp Half-Blood Hill, Long Island, New York. Harry's hands trembled slightly as he took it. They found me. All the way here. Magic has its ways, Chiron said. Would you like to read it privately? Harry glanced at the faces around him, Percy's encouraging smile, Annabeth's curious gaze, Nico's stoic presence at his back, and Chiron's gentle understanding. For the first time in his life, he didn't feel alone. No, he decided. I'd like you all to hear it. He broke the wax seal and unfolded the parchment inside. Hogwarts School of Witchcraft and Wizardry, he read aloud. Headmaster, Albus Dumbledore, Order of Merlin, First Class, Grand Source, CHF, Warlock, Supreme Mugwump, International Confeed, of Wizards. Impressive resume, Percy commented. Dear Mr. Potter, Harry continued. We are pleased to inform you that you have been accepted at Hogwarts School of Witchcraft and Wizardry. Please find enclosed a list of all necessary books and equipment. Term begins on September 1st. We await your owl by no later than July 31st. He looked up, confused. Their what? Their owl, Mr. D said with a smirk. Wizards use owls for mail. Primitive compared to iris messages, but they're stuck in the Middle Ages in many ways. There's another page, Harry noted, unfolding it. Books, robes, a wand. Where would I even get these things? Diagon Alley, most likely, Dionysus supplied, to everyone's surprise. Wizard Shopping Centre in London. Hidden from mortal eyes, naturally. This is all so strange, Harry admitted. First I'm a demigod, now I'm a wizard too. The question, Chiron said, is what you want to do about it. Hogwarts begins in September, which gives you the summer here at camp to train your demigod abilities. But the choice is yours, Harry. Could I do both? Harry asked hesitantly. Train here in summer and go to Hogwarts during the school year. Chiron exchanged glances with Mr. D. It would be unprecedented. But perhaps possible. Hogwarts is said to have powerful protective enchantments. You might be safer there during the school year than anywhere except camp. Plus, Annabeth added, you could learn about your mother's world. Her legacy. Harry hadn't considered that. The chance to connect with his mother's heritage was powerfully appealing. I want to try, he decided. I want to learn about both sides of who I am. Very well, Chiron nodded. We'll send a response to Hogwarts. And in the meantime, we'll begin your training here. Percy, would you and Nico show Harry around camp today? Get him started with basic combat skills. Absolutely, Percy grinned. As they left the big house, Harry clutched his Hogwarts letter tightly. His mind was spinning with the possibilities opening before him, demigod powers, wizard magic, a brother, friends, and 2 new worlds to explore. You okay? Percy asked, noticing Harry's dazed expression. Yeah, Harry said, a slow smile spreading across his face. For the first time, I think I really am. The camp tour was overwhelming but exciting. Percy and Nico showed Harry everything, the arena where demigods trained in sword fighting, the climbing wall with actual lava flowing down it, the forges where children of Hephaestus crafted magical weapons, the stables with Pegasi, and a canoe lake where naiads waved at them from beneath the surface. By lunchtime, Harry's head was swimming with new information, but he couldn't remember ever feeling so happy. "Time for your first combat lesson," Percy announced after they'd eaten. "Every demigod needs to know how to fight monsters." They headed to the arena, where Annabeth and several other campers were already training. Percy handed Harry a sword from the weapons rack, but it felt awkward and heavy in his hands. "Try this one," Nico suggested, offering a lighter blade with a black hilt. "Stygian iron. Only children of the underworld can use it properly." The moment Harry's fingers closed around the hilt, he felt a connection, a chill that ran up his arm, not unpleasant but alerting him to the weapon's deadly nature. "Better," he said, giving it an experimental swing. "Let's see what you've got," Percy grinned, uncapping Riptide. What followed was a crash course in sword fighting that left Harry bruised, exhausted, and exhilarated. He was nowhere near Percy's level, or even Nico's, but he had good reflexes and picked up the basics quickly. "Not bad for your first day," Percy said as they took a water break. "You're a natural at dodging. Probably all that practice avoiding your cousin." Harry grinned. Years of Harry hunting finally paying off. "Try using the shadows," Nico suggested. "They respond to you. Use that." Harry concentrated, feeling for the darkness around him. To his surprise, it responded eagerly, gathering around his blade and making his movements harder to track. "Whoa!" Percy jumped back as Harry's shadow-enhanced blade nearly caught him. "That's cheating." "That's using your strengths," Nico corrected with a rare smile. "Good job, brother." The word still sent a warm feeling through Harry. Brother. Family. He had a family now. As the day wore on, they practiced more combat techniques, tried archery. Harry was terrible, and even visited the Pegasus stables, though the winged horses seemed nervous around the children of Hades. "Don't take it personally," Percy said as a chestnut Pegasus backed away from Harry. "They're scared of death aura. It's not you, well, it is you, but not your fault." "Great pep talk, Percy," Nico said dryly. Evening brought another campfire, but this time Harry sat confidently at Nico's side rather than hiding behind Percy. Campers still stared at him. The new son of Hades was big news, but he was starting to get used to it. After the sing-along, as they walked back to cabin 13, a strange feeling prickled at the edge of Harry's awareness. Like being watched, but from very far away. He stopped, looking around. "What is it?" Nico asked, noticing his hesitation. "I don't know," Harry frowned. "Like something's looking for me." Nico's expression turned serious. "Monsters?" "No," Harry shook his head. "Different. Like, someone searching." A rush of wind swept through the camp, carrying with it a whisper that only Harry seemed to hear, a woman's voice, distant but clear. "Harry. Harry Potter. Did you hear that?" Harry asked urgently. "Hear what?" "A voice. A woman. She said my name." Nico looked alarmed now. "Ghosts?" "No," Harry said, somehow certain. "Not dead. Just, far away." The voice came again, stronger this time. "My son, find the key." And then, just as suddenly as it had appeared, the presence vanished. Harry stood blinking in the darkness, wondering if he'd imagined it. "We should tell Chiron," Nico decided. "Tomorrow." Harry nodded, but as they continued to their cabin, he couldn't shake the feeling that something important had just happened. Something that would change everything again. Inside cabin 13, he prepared for bed, his mind still buzzing with the day's events. As he lay down, he noticed something on his pillow, a small, ancient-looking key made of black metal. It hadn't been there that morning. "Nico," he called. "Did you leave this?" Nico looked up from his book, then froze when he saw the key. "No. Where did that come from?" "I don't know. It just appeared." Nico approached cautiously. That's Stygian iron. And those symbols, they're old underworld script. What does it say? For the worthy son, Nico translated, his voice strange. Harry, I think this is from our father. Harry stared at the key in his palm. What does it open? I don't know, Nico admitted. But if Hades sent it, it must be important. Harry closed his fingers around the key, feeling its cold weight. First a son of Hades, then a wizard, and now this mysterious gift. His life had changed more in one day than in all his previous years combined. I guess we'll find out what it means, he said, placing the key carefully beside his bed. I guess we will, Nico agreed, watching his new brother with growing curiosity and respect. Get some sleep, Harry. Something tells me you're going to need your strength. As Harry drifted off to sleep, the key gleamed in the green light of the cabin, a small piece of metal that somehow felt like the beginning of a much bigger adventure. Chapter 2, Blood and Magic. Harry woke to the sound of metal clashing against metal. Sitting up, he found Nico already dressed and practicing with his Stygian iron sword, fighting invisible opponents in the middle of their cabin. Morning, Nico said without breaking his fluid movements. Sleep okay? Better than I ever did in the cupboard, Harry replied, reaching for his glasses. The mysterious key still sat on his nightstand, glinting in the green torchlight. He pocketed it, feeling its cold weight against his thigh. Breakfast in 10, Nico said, sheathing his sword. Then Chiron wants us at the arena for your first real training day. Harry dressed quickly in his new camp clothes. 3 days at Camp Half-Blood had already changed him, his skin had more color, his eyes brighter. Even his perpetually messy hair seemed to have settled somewhat, though nothing could fully tame it. Ready for eggs and battle practice? Percy called, poking his head into their cabin. Classic Demigod breakfast combo. At the dining pavilion, Harry scraped a portion of his breakfast into the fire for Hades, murmuring a quiet thanks for the key. The flames flickered with dark purple shadows in response. So what's on the training menu today? Harry asked, biting into a piece of toast. Shadow manipulation, Nico said. If you're going to be using those powers, you need to control them properly. And sword fighting, Percy added. You've got good instincts, but your technique needs work. And after lunch, Annabeth joined in, sliding onto the bench beside Percy. I'm teaching you Greek. All demigods are hardwired for it, but you still need to learn. Harry nodded, trying not to feel overwhelmed. What about the wizard stuff? And the key? And that voice I heard? One crisis at a time, Percy advised sagely. That's the demigod way. After breakfast, they headed to a shaded area behind the Hades cabin where Nico had set up training dummies. Okay, Nico began, shadow travel is advanced, so we'll start with something simpler. Shadow manipulation. Harry watched as Nico demonstrated, the shadows around him thickening and swirling like living creatures, responding to his subtle hand movements. It's not just about controlling darkness, Nico explained. Shadows are, in between places. Not quite here, not quite in the underworld. That's why we can use them to travel, to hide things, to communicate with the dead. How do I start? Harry asked. Feel them first, Nico instructed. Close your eyes. Sense the shadows around you. Harry closed his eyes, reaching out with that strange sense he'd discovered during the Hellhound attack. Immediately, he felt the shadows, cool, shifting presences that seemed to recognize him, like distant relatives at a family reunion. They know me, he said, surprised. Nico nodded. You're a child of Hades. Death, darkness, shadows, they're part of your birthright. Now try to gather them, Nico continued. Don't force it. Ask them. They respond better to intention than brute force. Harry reached out mentally, imagining the shadows pooling in his hands. To his shock, darkness flowed toward him, swirling around his fingers like black smoke. I'm doing it, he exclaimed, then promptly lost concentration. The shadows dispersed. Not bad for a first try, Nico said, looking impressed despite himself. It took me weeks to get that far. They spent the next hour practicing, with Harry gradually gaining more control. By the end of the session, he could gather shadows at will, form them into simple shapes, and even create a shadowy barrier that partially concealed him from view. "You're a natural," Nico admitted as they headed to the sword arena. "Maybe it's the wizard blood giving you an edge with magical manipulation." Percy was waiting with a rack of practice swords. "Time to build some muscle, wizard boy. Shadow tricks are cool, but nothing beats cold steel when a monster's in your face." Sword training was less successful than shadow practice. Harry's reflexes were good, probably from dodging your cousin, Percy noted, but he lacked strength and technique. By lunchtime, he was bruised, sweaty, and frustrated. "Don't worry about it," Percy encouraged as they walked to the dining pavilion. "I was terrible my first week too. Almost got myself killed multiple times." "That's not actually reassuring," Harry pointed out. "Percy's specialty," Annabeth said, joining them. "How's the training going?" "Shadow stuff, great. Sword stuff, not so great," Harry summarized. "You'll get there," she assured him. "And you've got other talents. That invisibility cloak alone gives you a tactical advantage most demigods would kill for." After lunch came Greek lessons with Annabeth, which went surprisingly well. The ancient language seemed to flow naturally into Harry's mind, as if he'd known it in a previous life and was simply remembering. "You're picking this up faster than Percy did," Annabeth noted with approval. "Hey!" Percy protested from where he was lounging nearby. "Just stating facts, seaweed brain," she replied with a grin. By late afternoon, Harry was exhausted but satisfied with his progress. He was heading back to cabin 13 for a shower when Chiron cantered up to him, his expression serious. "Harry, we have a visitor who wishes to speak with you," the centaur said. "At the big house. It's rather urgent." "A visitor? For me?" Harry asked, confused. "Who even knows I'm here?" "That," Chiron said enigmatically, "is part of what we need to discuss." At the big house, Harry found a strange scene on the porch. Mr. D was playing pinochle with a tall, elderly man with a long silver beard, half-moon spectacles, and the most outlandish purple robes Harry had ever seen. Despite his eccentric appearance, the old man radiated power, different from the gods, but no less potent. "Ah, Harry," the man said, rising from his chair with surprising agility. "At last we meet." Harry stopped short, staring. "Who are you?" "Albus Dumbledore, headmaster of Hogwarts School of Witchcraft and Wizardry." He extended a hand. "I've been looking forward to meeting you for quite some time." Harry shook the offered hand cautiously. "You have?" "Indeed. I was a friend of your parents, your mother and James Potter," Dumbledore clarified. "I've been keeping an eye on you since their passing, though clearly not closely enough." His blue eyes twinkled with something like regret. "I must apologize for the conditions you endured with the Dursleys." "You knew about that?" Harry asked, a surge of anger rising unexpectedly. "Not the extent of it, I assure you," Dumbledore said gravely. "Had I known they kept you in a cupboard, I would have intervened immediately." Mr. D snorted. "Mortals. Always exceeding expectations in the worst possible ways." Chiron gestured to the empty chairs. "Perhaps we should sit. There is much to discuss." Harry sat, studying Dumbledore. "How did you find me?" "Percy and Annabeth just rescued me a few days ago." "Ah, yes," Dumbledore smiled. "Magic has its ways of tracking its own. When you disappeared from Privet Drive, certain magical instruments in my office went quite berserk. It took some doing to trace you across the ocean, and even more to penetrate the magical boundaries of this camp. Which shouldn't have been possible," Mr. D added sourly. "Our barriers keep out mortals and monsters." But not, it seems, wizards of sufficient power and peaceful intent, Dumbledore replied mildly. A fascinating discovery. You're here about the Hogwarts letter, Harry guessed. Partly, Dumbledore nodded. But more importantly, I'm here to explain some things about your heritage that you should know. Things even your new friends at this remarkable camp may not fully understand. Harry leaned forward. Like what? Like the true nature of your mother, for one, Dumbledore said. Lily Potter was not just an ordinary witch, though her muggle-born status led many to believe so. In fact, she was what you might call a legacy of Hecate. Magic ran particularly strong in her bloodline, though many generations removed from the goddess herself. So I'm not just a wizard and a demigod, Harry said slowly. I'm a demigod with legacy wizard blood too. Precisely, Dumbledore beamed. A unique combination, to my knowledge. And one that may explain why Lord Voldemort sought to kill you as an infant. The name sent an unexpected chill down Harry's spine. Voldemort? Who's that? A heavy silence fell. Chiron and Mr. D exchanged glances. He is, the most powerful dark wizard of our age, Dumbledore explained quietly. He led a campaign of terror against the wizarding world, seeking to purify magical blood and gain unparalleled power. Your parents stood against him, and for that, he targeted them. And you. But, my aunt said they died in a car crash, Harry said, confusion and anger swirling inside him. Dumbledore's expression darkened. They most certainly did not. They were murdered, Harry, protecting you. Voldemort came to your home on Halloween night when you were just a year old. He killed James first, then offered to spare Lily if she would step aside. She refused, shielding you with her body. He killed her, and then turned his wand on you. Harry touched the lightning scar on his forehead. And this? The only physical mark of what happened next, Dumbledore nodded. Voldemort cast the killing curse, a spell that no one had ever survived. But when he used it on you, something extraordinary happened. The curse rebounded, striking him instead. His body was destroyed, his power broken. You survived with nothing but that scar. Harry sat back, stunned. I destroyed this Voldemort. As a baby? Not destroyed, Dumbledore corrected gently. Merely defeated temporarily. His spirit survived, weakened and formless. Many believe him gone for good, but I fear he is merely waiting, gathering strength for his return. Mr. D sighed dramatically. Mortals who cheat death. Always so much paperwork. So he's like a ghost? Harry asked. Less than a ghost, Dumbledore said. But more dangerous. A fragment of what he once was, but driven by hatred and hunger for power. Harry's mind was reeling. And my scar? A connection, Dumbledore said carefully. The nature of which we do not fully understand. But I suspect your recent revelation as a son of Hades may complicate matters. Why? Harry asked. Voldemort's greatest fear has always been death, Dumbledore explained. He has gone to extraordinary lengths to escape it. A son of the death god who once defeated him would represent both his greatest fear and potentially a source of power he might seek to control. A cold realization dawned on Harry. The voice I heard last night, could that have been him? Dumbledore's eyebrows rose. You heard a voice. Harry described the whispered voice and the mysterious key that had appeared on his pillow. May I see this key? Dumbledore asked. Harry hesitated, then pulled it from his pocket. The black metal seemed to absorb the sunlight around it. Stygian iron, Chiron observed. And those markings are ancient underworld script. Dumbledore studied it without touching, his expression grave. A gift from your divine father, it seems. Though to what purpose, I cannot say. But this voice you heard, if it spoke of you being son and mentioned the key, it seems more likely to be connected to Hades than to Voldemort. But you're not sure, Harry noted. In matters where godly and wizarding powers intersect, certainty is a luxury none of us can afford, Dumbledore replied. Which brings me to why I am here, beyond satisfying an old man's curiosity about your well-being. He leaned forward, blue eyes intensely focused. Harry, something strange is happening in the wizarding world. Dark creatures called dementors, guardians of the wizard prison Azkaban, have been spotted in Muggle areas. They are creatures of despair and shadow that feed on happy memories and, ultimately, can consume a person's soul. Soul Eaters? Chiron asked sharply. That sounds like creatures of the underworld. Indeed, Dumbledore nodded. Though they have long served the wizarding justice system, their true origins are obscure. Some ancient texts suggest they emerged from the darkest corners of the underworld itself. And they're appearing in the mortal world now? Harry asked. Why? That is what concerns me, Dumbledore said grimly. Dementors are controlled by the Ministry of Magic. They should not be wandering freely. Unless someone's controlling them, Harry finished. Voldemort? Perhaps, Dumbledore acknowledged. Or perhaps something to do with your emergence as a son of Hades. The timing seems significant. Mr. D, who had been surprisingly quiet, suddenly spoke up. The barrier between realms has been thinning. We felt it on Olympus. Dead things stirring. Ancient powers waking. That's why I believe your dual heritage may be crucial, Harry, Dumbledore said. As both wizard and son of Hades, you may be uniquely positioned to understand what is happening, and perhaps to stop it. Me? Harry blinked. But I barely know how to hold a sword, much less control any powers. Yet you mastered shadow manipulation in a single morning, Chiron pointed out. Your progress is remarkable, even by demigod standards. Which is why I propose a compromise, Dumbledore said. Remain here at camp for the summer, training your demigod abilities. Then come to Hogwarts in September to begin your magical education. Between the two, you may develop the skills needed to face whatever is coming. Harry looked to Chiron. What do you think? The centaur's ancient eyes were troubled. These dementors concern me. Creatures that feed on souls should not be in the mortal world. Perhaps a quest is in order, to investigate their appearance and determine if there is indeed a connection to the underworld. A quest? Harry asked. A mission, Percy explained, suddenly appearing in the doorway with Annabeth and Nico. Sorry for eavesdropping, but Annabeth said it was important. Indeed it is, Mr. Jackson, Dumbledore said pleasantly. I was just suggesting that Harry might benefit from training in both his demigod and wizarding abilities. And I was considering authorizing a quest to investigate these dementor creatures, Chiron added. Harry, as son of Hades, would naturally lead. Lead? Harry squeaked. But I've been here 3 days. And you're the only one with connections to both worlds, Chiron pointed out. Though you would not go alone. The traditional number for a quest is 3. I'll go, Percy volunteered immediately. I've got experience with underworld stuff. And I should go, Nico added quietly. If these creatures are from our father's realm, I might recognize them. Chiron nodded. Very well. Harry Potter, do you accept the quest to discover the nature of these dementors and their connection to recent disturbances between the realms? Harry hesitated, looking at Percy's encouraging grin and Nico's solemn nod. Then his eyes met Dumbledore's twinkling blue gaze, filled with a confidence in him that Harry had never experienced before. I accept, he said, surprised by the firmness in his voice. Then you should consult the Oracle, Chiron instructed. She resides in the attic of this very building. The what? Harry asked. Oracle of Delphi, Annabeth explained. She delivers prophecies for quests. Usually cryptic, often disturbing, always important. Alone, Chiron added as Percy made to follow. Harry nodded, suddenly nervous. Right. Attic. Oracle. Prophecy. No problem. The attic stairs creaked ominously as Harry climbed. The space above was cluttered with strange objects, broken weapons, jars containing unidentifiable specimens, and what appeared to be monster trophies from previous quests. In the center sat a mummified figure on a stool, a withered human female body dressed in a tie-dyed dress, a headband holding back long black hair that still grew from her shriveled scalp. "Hello?" Harry called uncertainly. "I need a prophecy for my quest." For a long moment, nothing happened. Then green mist poured from the mummy's mouth, swirling around Harry's feet. The attic disappeared, replaced by shifting shadows. Within the mist, he saw figures, a tall, snake-like man with glowing red eyes, a familiar hellhound, and a gaunt, skeletal figure on a throne of bones who somehow resembled both Nico and Harry himself. When the mummy spoke, its voice hissed from everywhere at once, "Son of shadows, born of dual light, must face the servants of endless night. The Dark Lord rises from death's embrace, while ancient pacts begin to erase. Between two worlds the answer lies, revealed when darkness fills the skies. What was stolen must be reclaimed, or death itself shall be unchained." The green mist receded, swirling back into the mummy's mouth. The attic returned to normal, leaving Harry standing alone, shivering despite the summer heat. He stumbled back down the stairs, his mind replaying the prophecy over and over. Back on the porch, everyone turned to look at him expectantly. "Well?" Percy prompted. "What did she say?" Harry repeated the prophecy verbatim, his memory unnaturally sharp when it came to those ominous words. "The Dark Lord rises from death's embrace," Dumbledore quoted softly. "It seems your Voldemort is indeed involved." "What was stolen must be reclaimed," Chiron mused. "Something has been taken, but what? And from whom?" Annabeth added. "Death itself shall be unchained," doesn't sound good for anyone. "When do we leave?" Nico asked practically. "Dawn tomorrow," Chiron decided. "You'll need to prepare supplies, weapons, ambrosia for emergencies." "I can provide transportation to London," Dumbledore offered. "A portkey, magical transportation. From there, you can begin tracking the Dementor sightings." "London?" Harry asked. "We're going back to England." "The epicenter of the disturbances is there," Dumbledore nodded. "Perhaps not coincidentally, near where you lived until recently." "The Dursleys?" Harry frowned. "Why would Dementors be near them?" "Perhaps because they expected to find you there," Dumbledore suggested grimly. The rest of the day passed in a blur of preparation. Annabeth helped them pack essential supplies while Chiron provided each with a supply of ambrosia and nectar, godly food that could heal demigods but would incinerate mortals. "Use it sparingly," he warned. "Too much will burn you up from the inside." From the camp store, they obtained mortal money, both American dollars and British pounds, along with extra clothes and basic necessities. The Hephaestus cabin contributed special celestial bronze flashlights that wouldn't attract monsters, while the Apollo kids provided compact first aid kits. As night fell, Harry found himself at the beach, staring out at the Long Island Sound. The weight of the quest pressed down on him. 3 days ago, he'd been locked in a cupboard, and now he was leading a mission to save 2 worlds he barely understood. "Nervous?" Percy asked, sitting down beside him on the sand. "Terrified," Harry admitted. "I don't know what I'm doing, Percy. Everyone's counting on me, but I've had exactly 3 days of training." "If it helps, I went on my first quest after about a week at camp," Percy said. "Nearly died multiple times, fought the war god, was accused of stealing Zeus's master bolt. You know, typical vacation stuff." Despite himself, Harry laughed. "How did you handle it?" "Badly at first," Percy confessed. "But here's the secret, nobody knows what they're doing, not really. We all just make it up as we go along and hope for the best. Even the gods." "Especially the gods," Percy said with a grin. "Look, you've got me and Nico watching your back." Between water powers, shadow powers, and whatever wizard mojo you've got brewing, we'll figure it out. Harry nodded, feeling marginally better. Thanks, Percy. What are friends for, if not potentially suicidal quests? Later that night, as Harry packed the last of his meager belongings, Nico entered their cabin, his expression unreadable. You're worried, Harry observed. Underworld creatures in the wizard world, Nico said. That's not normal, even by our standards. Do you think they're really after me? Nico shrugged. Maybe. Or maybe they're after something else and you're just caught in the middle. Either way, we need to find out. Have you ever seen a dementor? Harry asked. No, Nico admitted. But if they feed on souls, they're trespassing on our father's domain. He won't be happy about that. Unless he sent them, Harry pointed out. The prophecy mentioned ancient pacts beginning to erase. What if the gods are breaking their agreements? Then we're in even bigger trouble, Nico said bluntly. Get some sleep, Harry. Tomorrow's going to be rough. Dawn broke clear and bright over Camp Half-Blood. Harry, Percy, and Nico gathered at the top of Half-Blood Hill with Chiron, Annabeth, and Dumbledore, who had spent the night in the big house. This, Dumbledore said, holding up what appeared to be an old rubber boot, is a port key. It will activate in precisely 2 minutes, transporting you directly to a secure location in London. A boot? Percy asked skeptically. We're traveling by footwear. Wizards disguise magical objects as mundane items muggles would ignore, Dumbledore explained with a twinkle in his eye. Who would steal an old boot? Fair point, Percy conceded. Remember your training, Chiron told them. Stay together, trust your instincts, and I am camp if you need assistance. I am? Harry asked. Iris message, Annabeth explained. Rainbow communication. I packed spray bottles for emergencies. Of course you did, Percy said fondly. 30 seconds, Dumbledore warned. You'll need to be touching the port key when it activates. Harry turned to Annabeth. Thanks for everything. Even the Greek lessons. She smiled, punching his arm lightly. Don't get killed out there, Potter. I've got more lessons planned when you get back. 10 seconds, Dumbledore announced. Place a finger on the boot, please. Harry, Percy, and Nico crowded around, each touching the decrepit footwear. Safe travels, Chiron said. And Harry, trust in both sides of your heritage. Your wizard blood and your godly powers together make you uniquely qualified for this quest. 3, 2, 1, Dumbledore counted. The world vanished in a swirl of color and a sensation like being hooked behind the navel. Harry felt Percy and Nico pressed against him as they spun through void, the boot somehow keeping them anchored together. Then, abruptly, solid ground slammed into their feet. Percy and Harry tumbled over, while Nico somehow managed to land gracefully in a crouch. The boot fell to the ground, once again just ordinary footwear. I hate magical travel, Percy groaned, sitting up. Every single kind. They had landed in what appeared to be the back room of a dingy pub. Dust motes danced in the sunlight streaming through a small window, illuminating stacked crates and barrels. Where are we? Harry asked, adjusting his glasses which had gone askew in the landing. The leaky cauldron, if I had to guess, Nico said, surprising them both with his knowledge. Entrance to Diagon Alley. How do you know about wizard places? Percy asked, getting to his feet. Nico shrugged. The dead talk. Wizard ghosts are particularly chatty. A door creaked open, revealing a stooped, toothless old man. Ah, Dumbledore said you'd be arriving. Tom's the name, innkeeper of the leaky cauldron. Got rooms ready for you upstairs, just as requested. Thanks, Harry said, trying to act like magical teleportation was perfectly normal. We appreciate it. Think nothing of it, Tom waved them off. Any friend of Dumbledore's is welcome here. Though I must say, he added, eyeing Harry curiously, "You look familiar, young man." Harry tensed, but Percy smoothly cut in. "We get that a lot. Must have one of those faces, you know." Perhaps," Tom nodded, though he looked unconvinced. "Well, come along then. I'll show you to your rooms." The Leaky Cauldron was a wizard pub and inn, as Nico had correctly identified. The main room buzzed with activity, witches and wizards in robes drinking strange concoctions, discussing matters in hushed tones, and occasionally producing small bursts of magic that would have sent any mortal running for the hills. "This is so weird," Percy whispered as they followed Tom upstairs. "And I've met horse people and gods." Their rooms were small but clean, with odd touches that betrayed their magical nature, candles that floated without stands, mirrors that commented on their appearances, "Your hair could use a comb, dear," one told Harry, and windows that showed different weather than what was actually outside. "Dumbledore left this for you," Tom said, handing Harry a sealed envelope. "Said you'd know what to do with it. If you need anything, just tap the bell pull 3 times. Once he'd gone, Harry opened the envelope. Inside was a map of London with several locations marked in red, along with a note in elegant handwriting. "Harry, these are the sites of recent Dementor sightings. The most recent is marked with a star, an alley near Westminster. Perhaps start there. You will know when Dementors are near, they bring unnatural cold and feelings of despair. Be cautious. If confronted, the Patronus charm is most effective, though I fear you haven't learned it yet. Light and positive emotions are your best defense. For magical emergencies, tap the enclosed coin 3 times and say, 'Fox.' Help will come. APWBD, APWBD?" Percy asked, reading over Harry's shoulder. "Albus Percival Wulfric Brian Dumbledore," Harry recalled from the Hogwarts letter. "Bit of a mouthful. So we're heading to Westminster?" Nico asked, examining the map. "Looks like it," Harry nodded. "But first, maybe we should get me a wand. If we're dealing with wizard stuff too, I should probably have one." "Diagon Alley," Nico agreed. "Through the pub and out back." They headed downstairs, trying to look inconspicuous despite Percy's orange camp half-blood t-shirt and Nico's all-black ensemble complete with skull ring. Harry, at least, was wearing neutral clothes that wouldn't stand out too much in either world. As they passed through the pub, Harry kept his head down, remembering Tom's curious look. Something told him that being recognized right now would complicate their quest. Behind the pub was a small courtyard facing a brick wall. Nico approached it confidently and tapped a specific pattern of bricks with his finger. To Percy and Harry's amazement, the wall rearranged itself, bricks sliding apart to reveal an archway leading to a bustling, colorful street filled with the strangest shops they had ever seen. "Welcome to Diagon Alley," Nico said, a rare smile flickering across his face at their stunned expressions. "How did you know how to do that?" Harry asked. "Ghost of a wizard," Nico shrugged. "Died in the 1940s. Would not stop talking about how much he missed shopping here." Diagon Alley was a sensory overload. Shops sold everything from cauldrons to broomsticks to live owls. Witches and wizards in colorful robes browsed displays of strange ingredients and magical artifacts. Children pressed their noses against the windows of a shop displaying what appeared to be the latest racing broom. "This is like the mall for wizards," Percy marveled. "So where do we get a wand?" "Ollivanders," Nico pointed to a narrow, shabby shop with a sign reading, "Ollivanders, makers of fine wands since 382 BC. Inside, the shop was dusty and quiet, lined with thousands of narrow boxes stacked to the ceiling. The air tingled with latent magic that even Percy, with no wizard blood, could feel. "Good morning," said a soft voice, making them all jump. An old man with wide, pale eyes stood before them, having appeared silently from between the shelves. "I wondered when I would be seeing you, Mr. Potter." Harry stiffened. "You know who I am." "I remember every wand I've ever sold, Mr. Potter. It seems only yesterday that your mother and father were in here buying their first wands." His silvery eyes moved to Percy and Nico. But you bring strange companions. Not wizards, yet not ordinary muggles either. Curious. We're, exchange students, Percy improvised. From America. Indeed, Ollivander said, clearly not believing him. Well, Mr. Potter, let us find your wand. Or rather, let the wand find you. The wand chooses the wizard, after all. What followed was a strange process of trial and error. Ollivander had Harry try wand after wand, snatching them away almost immediately when they produced no results or, in some cases, caused small explosions or shattered vases. Tricky customer, Ollivander murmured, seeming delighted by the challenge. Not to worry, we'll find the perfect match here somewhere. He disappeared into the back of the shop, returning with a dusty box. Perhaps, yes, why not? Unusual combination, but then, you are an unusual case, Mr. Potter. He opened the box, revealing a polished wand of rich, warm wood. Holly and phoenix feather, 11 inches, nice and supple. The moment Harry's fingers closed around it, warmth spread up his arm. He raised the wand and swished it through the air, producing a stream of red and gold sparks that danced like fireworks. Percy whistled in appreciation while Nico watched with intense curiosity. Curious, Ollivander said softly. Very curious. Sorry, Harry said, but what's curious? I remember every wand I've ever sold, Mr. Potter. Every single wand. It so happens that the phoenix whose tail feather is in your wand gave another feather, just one other. It is very curious indeed that you should be destined for this wand when its brother, why, its brother gave you that scar. A chill ran down Harry's spine. You mean Voldemort has the other one? Ollivander flinched at the name. We do not speak his name. But yes, the Dark Lord did terrible things with that wand. Terrible, yes, but great. An uncomfortable silence followed. That'll be 7 galleons, Ollivander finally said. Harry reached for the pouch of wizard money Dumbledore had provided. As he counted out the strange gold coins, Ollivander continued to study him. I think we must expect great things from you, Mr. Potter, the wandmaker said softly. After all, he who must not be named did great things. Terrible, yes, but great. Outside the shop, Percy released a breath. That wasn't creepy at all. My wand is connected to Voldemort's, Harry said, staring at the innocuous piece of wood in his hand. Why? The prophecy mentioned connections between worlds, Nico reminded him. Maybe this is part of it. Can we worry about wand brothers later? Percy suggested. We should check out those dementor sightings before it gets dark. They made their way back through the leaky cauldron and out into Muggle London, where they caught the underground to Westminster. The marked alley wasn't hard to find, a narrow passage between buildings that reeked of garbage and neglect. Cheery place for a soul-sucking monster to hang out, Percy commented, uncapping Riptide. The pen transformed into his glowing bronze sword. I don't feel anything unusual, Harry said, gripping his new wand. No cold, no despair. They're not here now, Nico said, his eyes closed in concentration. But something was. The shadows remember it, something that doesn't belong. Can you track it? Harry asked. Nico nodded slowly. Maybe. Give me a minute. He knelt, placing his palm flat against the ground. The shadows around him deepened, responding to his command. Harry felt the familiar pull of underworld magic, similar to his own power, but more focused, more disciplined. That way, Nico finally said, pointing east. And it's not alone. They followed Nico's directions through back streets and alleys, Percy keeping Riptide ready while Harry clutched his wand, trying to remember the few spells he'd read about in the books Dumbledore had left him. As they walked, the temperature began to drop. Their breath fogged in the air despite the summer evening. A heaviness settled over them, a feeling of hopelessness that seemed to seep into their bones. This is it, Percy murmured. This feeling, It's like the river Cocytus in the underworld. Dementors, Harry whispered, somehow knowing with certainty. They're close. They turned a corner into a deserted park. The streetlights flickered and died as a thick, unnatural fog rolled in. Dark shapes moved within it, tall, hooded figures that seemed to float rather than walk, their faces hidden in the shadows of their cowls. There must be a dozen of them, Nico breathed. What are they doing here? The answer came in the form of a high, cold laugh that sent shivers down Harry's spine. From within the fog emerged a pale man with white blonde hair and aristocratic features, wielding a black wand with a silver handle shaped like a serpent's head. Well, the man drawled, his cold grey eyes fixing on Harry. The rumors are true. Harry Potter has returned to England. Who are you? Harry demanded, raising his wand instinctively. Lucius Malfoy, the man replied with a mocking bow. A pleasure to finally meet the famous boy who lived. Though I must say, you keep strange company these days. His gaze flicked to Percy and Nico with undisguised disdain. What do you want? Percy asked, riptide gleaming in the fading light. Fascinating weapon, Malfoy observed. Celestial bronze, if I'm not mistaken. The Dark Lord will be most interested to learn that Harry Potter has allied himself with demigods. Harry felt a jolt of surprise. You know about demigods? The old families maintain certain knowledge that others have forgotten, Malfoy smiled thinly. Including the true nature of creatures like these. He gestured to the dementors hovering behind him. Did you know they were born from the union of underworld spirits and ancient bogarts? Neither fully dead nor alive, existing in the space between. Rather like you now, Potter, neither fully wizard nor god. You still haven't answered the question, Nico said coldly. What do you want? Information, primarily, Malfoy replied. The Dark Lord is most curious about this new development, the boy who lived, revealed as a son of Hades. It opens certain possibilities. Voldemort is back. Harry asked, feeling a chill that had nothing to do with the Dementors. Malfoy's face tightened at the name. His return is inevitable. And when it comes, he will want to understand how you survived his killing curse. Whether it was your mother's sacrifice, as Dumbledore claims, or perhaps, something inherited from your true father. The Dementors shifted restlessly, drawing closer. Harry felt their cold influence pressing against his mind, bringing forth his worst memories, Uncle Vernon's purple face, Aunt Petunia's shrill voice, Dudley's fists, the cupboard door locking from the outside. Percy wasn't faring much better, his face pale as he fought his own dark memories. Even Nico, used to underworld horrors, looked shaken. You don't control these things, Harry realized suddenly. You're afraid of them too. A flicker of unease crossed Malfoy's face. The Dementors serve those who offer what they crave, souls to feed upon. The Dark Lord has promised them a feast. They're not yours to offer, Nico said, his voice gaining power. The ground trembled slightly beneath their feet. These creatures belong to the underworld. Do they? Malfoy raised an eyebrow. Perhaps you should take that up with your father, young demigod. After all, it was Hades who allowed them to enter our world in the first place. You're lying, Harry said, but doubt crept into his voice. The prophecy had mentioned ancient pacts being erased. What if Hades was breaking some agreement? Am I? Malfoy smiled coldly. Ask yourself, Potter, why would the Lord of the Dead claim a wizard child after all these years? Why now? The boundaries between worlds are thinning, and your father is taking advantage. A Dementor drifted closer to Harry, its rattling breath loud in the silence. Without thinking, he raised his wand and shouted the first spell that came to mind, one he'd read in a defense book Dumbledore had left. Expecto Patronum. Nothing happened except a feeble silver wisp that faded immediately. The Dementor continued its approach. You need a happy memory for that spell, Potter, Malfoy laughed. Didn't Dumbledore tell you? But what happy memories could you possibly have, raised as you were. Harry's mind raced, searching for something, anything, happy enough to power the spell. Then it hit him, not a memory, but a feeling. The moment Hades had claimed him at camp, the sense of finally belonging, of having a place in the world. Expecto Patronum, he tried again, focusing on that feeling. This time, a silvery shield erupted from his wand, not a fully formed Patronus, but enough to make the nearest Dementor pause. At the same moment, Percy lunged forward, slashing at another Dementor with Riptide. The celestial bronze passed through it like smoke, but the creature recoiled nonetheless, apparently disliking the godly weapon. "They can be hurt," Percy called. "Not killed, but hurt." Nico had his own strategy. Driving his Stygian iron sword into the ground, he commanded the shadows around them. "I am the son of Hades. Return to the darkness where you belong." Several Dementors hesitated, their hooded heads turning toward Nico as if confused by the direct command from a child of their master. Malfoy's expression turned from amusement to alarm. "Enough games," he snapped, raising his wand. Crucio. The curse shot toward Harry, but Percy intercepted it with Riptide. Surprisingly, the celestial bronze blade reflected the spell, sending it careening back toward Malfoy, who barely managed to dodge. "Impossible," the wizard hissed. "No mundane weapon should deflect magic." "Not mundane," Percy grinned fiercely. "God made." Taking advantage of the distraction, Harry raised his wand again. This time, he thought of Percy and Annabeth rescuing him from the cupboard, of finding a brother in Nico, of belonging at Camp Half-Blood. Expecto Patronum. Silver light exploded from his wand, forming not the misty shield of before but a brilliant, glowing stag that charged the Dementors, scattering them. The dark creatures fled before the light, their rattling screams fading into the night. Malfoy stared in shock. "A corporeal Patronus? At your age, with no training?" Harry was equally surprised but tried not to show it. "Leave," he commanded, pointing his wand at Malfoy. "Or the next spell won't be defensive." For a moment, Malfoy looked like he might fight. Then, reassessing the situation, 3 powerful opponents, no Dementors for backup, he slowly lowered his wand. "This isn't over, Potter," he said coldly. "The Dark Lord will return, and when he does, he'll be very interested in your newfound parentage. The son of death serving the one who conquered death, poetic, don't you think?" With a crack like a gunshot, Malfoy disappeared. "Did he just teleport?" Percy asked incredulously. "Apparition," Harry said, remembering his reading. "Wizard teleportation." "That was intense," Percy acknowledged, capping Riptide. "You okay, Harry?" Harry nodded, though his legs felt wobbly. Producing the Patronus had drained him more than he'd expected. "And you?" he asked Nico, who looked unusually pale even for him. "I'll live," Nico muttered. "But those things, they're wrong, Harry. They don't belong fully in our father's realm or in this one. They're abominations." "Malfoy said Hades let them into this world," Harry said hesitantly. "Could that be true?" Nico's expression darkened. "I don't know. But I intend to find out." "How?" Percy asked. "We need to speak to our father," Nico said grimly. "And for that, we need a proper entrance to the underworld." "There's one here in London?" Harry asked, surprised. Nico nodded. "Every major city has them if you know where to look. London's is in the oldest part of the underground, the abandoned station at British Museum." "The prophecy mentioned something stolen," Percy reminded them. "Maybe that's connected to why these Dementor things are acting weird." "It's possible," Nico agreed. "If something was taken from the underworld, it could disrupt the balance." "Then we go to the British Museum station," Harry decided, feeling strangely confident despite the night's terrors. "Tonight." They made their way to the nearest tube station, buying tickets to Holborn, the closest active stop to the abandoned British Museum station. As they rode, Harry couldn't help but notice the stares his Patronus stag had generated, both from the dementors and from Malfoy. "What's bothering you?" Percy asked, noticing his expression. "That spell I cast, the Patronus." Malfoy seemed shocked I could do it. "You said it was a difficult spell," Percy shrugged. "Yes, but it's more than that. The form it took, a stag. I don't know why, but it feels significant." Nico was quiet for a moment. "Patron uses take forms that represent protection to the caster. Maybe the stag means something to you that you don't consciously remember." At Holborn, they exited the station, following Nico's lead through increasingly deserted streets. The night had grown deeper, a thin crescent moon providing just enough light to navigate by. "Here," Nico said finally, stopping before what appeared to be a maintenance door in the side of a building. "This leads to the old service tunnels." "It's locked," Percy pointed out. Harry raised his wand. "Alohomora," he whispered, recalling another spell from his reading. The lock clicked open, the door swinging inward to reveal a narrow, dark passage sloping downward. "Nice," Percy grinned. "Magic's pretty handy." "So are flashlights," Harry replied, pulling out one of the celestial bronze lights from their packs. The passage led them deep underground, past ancient brick walls glistening with moisture and old, rusting pipes. The air grew colder, but not with the unnatural chill of dementors. This was the familiar cold of the underground, of spaces long abandoned by the living. After what felt like hours of walking, they emerged onto a platform, the abandoned British Museum station, closed since the 1930s but still intact, frozen in time with its original tiled walls and signage. "Now what?" Harry asked, his voice echoing in the cavernous space. Nico approached the far wall, where the tracks disappeared into a tunnel. "The entrance is through there, in the deepest part of the tunnel system." "Of course it is," Percy sighed. "Because entrances to the underworld are never conveniently located in shopping malls or coffee shops." They climbed down onto the tracks, careful to avoid the third rail even though power had long since been cut to this section. The tunnel beyond the platform was pitch black, swallowing their flashlight beams like a hungry mouth. As they walked, Harry felt a familiar sensation, the pull of the underworld, calling to the part of him that was Hades' son. "It's close," he murmured. "I can feel it." "Me too," Nico nodded. Just ahead. The tunnel widened into a maintenance area, where the tracks split into several sidings. At the very back wall stood an ancient maintenance door, its surface covered in strange symbols that glowed faintly in the dark. "That's Greek," Percy realized, squinting at the markings. "And, something older." "Underworld script," Nico confirmed. "The same as on your key, Harry." Harry pulled out the black iron key he'd received at camp. In the darkness of the tunnel, it seemed to pulse with its own inner light, the markings glowing with the same eerie luminescence as those on the door. "I think it goes here," Harry said, approaching the door. There was no visible keyhole, but as he held the key near the center of the door, a slot materialized as if the metal was melting away to receive it. Harry inserted the key and turned it. The sound of massive gears grinding echoed through the tunnel as the door slowly swung open, revealing not a maintenance room but a vast, sloping passage leading downward into absolute darkness. "The entrance to the underworld," Nico said, a hint of reverence in his voice. "Our father's domain." Percy uncapped Riptide again, the sword's glow illuminating the first few feet of the passage. "Just to be clear, we're going to the underworld to ask Hades if he's illegally releasing soul-sucking monsters into the mortal world." "Pretty much," Harry nodded. "Awesome," Percy said with forced cheerfulness. "I was just thinking my vacation wasn't life-threatening enough." They stepped through the doorway together, the door swinging shut behind them with a final sounding clang. The key remained in the lock on their side, still glowing faintly. The passage descended steeply, the air growing colder with each step. Unlike Harry's previous experience with the Oracle's prophecy, this felt real, substantial. They were physically entering the realm of the dead. "Stay close," Nico warned. The underworld responds differently to each of us. Percy, as a son of Poseidon, you're an intruder here. Harry and I have more freedom, but even we need to be careful. How far is it to, wherever we're going? Harry asked. Hades' palace is at the center of the underworld, Nico explained. But first we have to cross the river Styx, which means finding Sharon and convincing him to ferry us across. Last time I was here, he wanted a pay raise, Percy recalled. Think that's still a sore point? Probably, Nico sighed. Luckily, I brought payment. He patted his pocket, which jingled with what Harry assumed were not normal coins. The passage eventually opened onto a vast cavern, dimly lit by ghostly fires that burned without fuel or smoke. A wide, black river flowed silently through the center, the Styx, Harry realized with a shiver. Along the near bank, transparent figures huddled in groups, shades of the dead, waiting for passage. This is real, Harry whispered, the full impact of his heritage finally hitting him. I'm really the son of this. Disappointing, isn't it? Said a smooth, sardonic voice behind them. They whirled to find a tall, elegant man in an expensive black Italian suit standing where seconds before there had been nothing. His skin was alabaster pale, his eyes so dark they seemed to absorb light rather than reflect it. A crown of braided silver sat upon his head, and power radiated from him like heat from a furnace. Father, Nico acknowledged with a slight bow. Harry stood frozen, staring at the god of the dead, at his father. The resemblance was there in the sharp angles of their faces, the unruly black hair, though Hades was streaked with silver at the temples. My sons, Hades said, his voice neither warm nor cold. And Percy Jackson. How, predictable. Lord Hades, Percy greeted cautiously. Rocking the modern look, I see. Hades raised an eyebrow. The suit. One must adapt with the times, nephew. Death is eternal, but fashion changes. Why are you here? Nico asked bluntly. We were coming to your palace. And make me wait while you bargained with Sharon and navigated the fields of asphodel? Hades snorted. I think not. Time moves differently here, but it still moves. You have questions. Ask them. Harry found his voice at last. The dementors. Did you release them into the mortal world? Hades' eyes fixed on Harry, studying him with an intensity that made his skin crawl. Straight to the point. You get that from your mother. You knew my mother? Harry asked, momentarily distracted. Lily Evans, Hades nodded. A remarkable woman. One of Hecate's legacies, though she never knew it. Her magic was different. Purer, somehow. It intrigued me. Did you love her? Harry couldn't help asking. The question seemed to surprise Hades. Love is Aphrodite's domain, not mine. But I respected her. Admired her. And when I foresaw the darkness that would consume her, I intervened, more than I should have, perhaps. By having me, Harry realized. By giving her a child who would inherit powers from both worlds, Hades corrected. A child who could navigate the boundaries between life and death, between mortal and divine. You knew what would happen to her, Harry said, anger suddenly flaring. You knew Voldemort would kill her. I knew many possible futures, Hades said carefully. In all of them, Lily Evans was marked for death. But in only one did her son survive, and that future required certain, divine elements. So you used her, Harry accused. I gave her a chance to create something that would outlast her, Hades countered. A son with the power to finish what she began. She knew the risks, Harry. She chose her path willingly. Wait, Percy interrupted. You're saying Lily Potter knew Harry was your son? Not James Potter's. James knew as well, Hades said, surprising them all. They had tried for a child without success. I appeared to them both, offering an alternative. James would raise my son as his own, giving him protection in the wizarding world while I watched from afar. That doesn't sound like you, Nico observed. You're not exactly known for cooperative parenting arrangements. Hades' lips twitched in what might have been a smile. As I said, Lily Evans was a remarkable woman. And the circumstances were exceptional. The dementors, Harry prompted, returning to their original question. Did you release them? Hades' expression darkened. No. The dementors are abominations, neither fully dead nor alive, feeding on souls that should rightfully pass to my realm. They were created centuries ago by a dark wizard attempting to cheat death, trapping fragments of underworld spirits in constructs of magical shadows. Then why are they appearing in the mortal world now? Percy asked. Because something has been stolen from my realm, Hades said grimly. Something that maintained the barriers between worlds. The prophecy, Harry realized. What was stolen must be reclaimed. Indeed, Hades nodded. The Helm of Balance, an ancient artifact that regulates the flow of souls between realms. With it missing, creatures that normally cannot cross between worlds find the barriers weakened. Who took it? Nico asked. That, Hades said darkly, is what you must discover. But I can tell you this, it was taken by a wizard, one who seeks to control death itself. Voldemort, Harry said immediately. Perhaps, Hades allowed. Though he lacks physical form at present, which would make stealing from the underworld challenging. He has servants, Harry pointed out. Like Lucius Malfoy, who we met controlling dementors. Controlling is a strong word, Hades said. Directing, perhaps. Temporarily influencing. But true control of underworld creatures requires underworld power. A terrible thought struck Harry. Could Voldemort use this Helm of Balance to return to life? Properly, I mean. Hades' expression was grave. Worse. He could use it to control the boundary between life and death itself. To decide who dies and who lives. To raise armies of the dead while preventing his enemies from dying properly, trapping them in a state worse than death. We need to find it, Percy said firmly. Where do we start looking? The thief left traces, Hades said. Magical residue that leads back to one place, a castle in Scotland. I believe you know it, Harry. Hogwarts? Harry asked, shocked. But that's supposed to be safe. Protected. Protected against many things, Hades agreed. But perhaps not against a thief who already dwells within. Someone at Hogwarts stole your helm, Nico summarized. Working for Voldemort. Or perhaps Voldemort himself, in some form we do not yet understand, Hades suggested. Regardless, the Helm of Balance must be recovered before the barrier between worlds collapses completely. That's why you claimed Harry now, Percy realized. You need him to go to Hogwarts and find this thing. I claimed my son because it was time, Hades said coldly. But yes, his unique position, accepted at both Camp Half-Blood and Hogwarts, creates opportunities. You're using me, Harry said flatly. Just like you used my mother. Hades regarded him with those fathomless dark eyes. I am a god, Harry. We use mortals, even our children, as pieces in games you cannot fully comprehend. But that does not mean I do not value you. Why do you think I gave you the key? To get us here, Harry said. To this conversation. No, Hades shook his head. The key has other properties. It can lock or unlock any door, physical or metaphysical. Including doors between life and death, between mortal and divine. Harry's hand went to his pocket, where the key now rested. What exactly are you saying? That I have given you a tool few mortals have ever possessed, Hades said. Use it wisely. It may save more than just your own life. The cavern trembled slightly, dust and small stones falling from the ceiling. Our time grows short, Hades said. The mortal world calls you back. But before you go, know this, the helm must be found before the first day of autumn, when the barrier between worlds grows naturally thinner. If it remains missing beyond that point, the separation between realms will collapse entirely. No pressure, Percy muttered. One last thing, Hades said, fixing his gaze on Harry. The stag Patronus you conjured, it was not random. James Potter was an animagus, a wizard who could transform into an animal. His form was a stag. Harry felt his throat tighten. So when I cast that spell, you connected with the man who raised you as his own, Hades confirmed. Magic recognizes such bonds, even when they are not of blood. With that oddly gentle revelation, Hades stepped backward into a shadow and vanished, leaving the three demigods alone at the edge of the Styx. Well, Percy said after a moment of stunned silence, that was informative. He actually answered our questions, Nico said, sounding surprised. Clearly, too. That's not like him. Because he needs us, Harry realized, still processing everything he'd learned. He needs me specifically, because of what I am, part wizard, part demigod. I can go places and do things neither can do alone. So what's our next move? Percy asked. Isn't it obvious? Harry replied, a new determination filling him. We need to go to Hogwarts. We need to find whoever stole the Helm of Balance before they hand it over to Voldemort, if they haven't already. Small problem, Percy pointed out. Hogwarts doesn't start until September 1st. That's weeks away. Then we'll have to find another way in, Harry said firmly. Dumbledore will help us. He needs to know what's happening anyway. How do we get out of here? Percy asked, looking around the cavern. Does the door behind us lead back to the underground? Nico shook his head. Too risky to backtrack through the underworld without my father's explicit protection. But I might have enough strength to shadow travel us all back to London. Might? Percy repeated skeptically. It'll be close, Nico admitted. But with Harry's help, I think we can make it. Two children of Hades are stronger than one. Harry nodded, stepping closer to Nico. Tell me what to do. Both of you, grab my hands, Nico instructed. Percy, try not to think watery thoughts, it makes the shadows resist. Harry, imagine the leaky cauldron. Picture it as clearly as you can. Harry closed his eyes, visualizing the dingy pub with its strange clientele and magical atmosphere. He felt Nico drawing on the shadows around them, pulling them close like a cloak. Then came the familiar sensation of being stretched and compressed simultaneously as they plunged into darkness. The shadow travel was rougher than with Mrs. O'Leary, more turbulent somehow. Harry felt the shadows fighting them, reluctant to release travelers from the underworld back to the world of the living. He pushed his own power into the effort, imagining the shadows parting before them like a curtain. They burst back into reality in an alley beside the leaky cauldron, all three collapsing to their knees. Nico was sheet white, barely conscious from the effort. Percy looked green around the gills, while Harry felt like he'd run a marathon carrying a boulder. Never again, Percy groaned. Next time, we take the tube. It worked though, Harry pointed out, helping Nico to his feet. We're back. They staggered into the leaky cauldron, ignoring the curious stares of the few late-night patrons. Tom the innkeeper took one look at their exhausted state and hurried over. Rough night, lads? He asked, eyeing Nico with particular concern. Just tired, Harry assured him. Our friend needs rest. Up you go then, Tom nodded, helping them toward the stairs. I'll send up some hot chocolate, does wonders after a dementor encounter, which, by the look of you. Harry didn't correct his assumption. Hot chocolate sounded perfect after their journey to the literal underworld. In their room, they collapsed onto the beds, Nico immediately falling into a deep sleep. Percy didn't look far behind, his eyes drooping as he kicked off his shoes. We should contact Dumbledore in the morning, Harry said, fighting his own exhaustion. Tell him what we've learned. Percy agreed sleepily. Quest officially upgraded from dangerous to probably suicidal. Standard demigod stuff. Despite the dire situation, Harry smiled. Thanks, Percy. For everything. What are friends for? Percy mumbled, already half asleep. Besides, Annabeth would kill me if I let anything happen to you. As Percy's breathing deepened into sleep, Harry lay awake, turning the black iron key over in his fingers. A tool few mortals had ever possessed, Hades had said. The power to open doors between life and death. What doors might he need to open before this quest was done? And more troubling, what doors might he need to close? With that unsettling thought, Harry finally surrendered to exhaustion, the key clutched tightly in his hand as he dreamed of stags and shadows and a mother he could barely remember. Morning arrived with weak sunlight filtering through dusty windows and the smell of bacon wafting up from the pub below. Percy was already awake, fresh from a shower and looking remarkably recovered. Water heals me, he explained when Harry commented on it. Perks of being a sea god's kid. Nico, on the other hand, was still pale and drawn, though no longer unconscious. Shadow travel takes a lot out of me, he said when Harry expressed concern. I'll be fine after some food. They headed downstairs for breakfast, finding the pub busy with morning patrons. As they ate, Harry filled them in on his plan. We need to contact Dumbledore immediately. If someone at Hogwarts has the helm, he needs to know. Plus, he might be able to get us into the castle early. How do we reach him? Percy asked around a mouthful of toast. Owl post takes too long, and I'm guessing wizards don't use phones. Fox, Harry remembered, pulling out the coin Dumbledore had given him. He said to tap this 3 times and say, Fox, if we had an emergency. I'd say, potential collapse of the barrier between worlds qualifies, Percy nodded. Harry tapped the coin 3 times with his wand, whispering, Fox. For a moment, nothing happened. Then the coin grew warm in his palm, glowing with golden light. A burst of flame appeared in midair beside their table, causing nearby patrons to exclaim in surprise. From the flame emerged a magnificent bird with crimson and gold plumage, its intelligent eyes fixing on Harry. Whoa, Percy breathed. Is that a phoenix? The bird trilled a musical note that seemed to lift their spirits instantly. It landed on their table, carefully avoiding their plates, and extended a leg to which a small scroll was attached. Harry removed it and unrolled the parchment to find a brief message in Dumbledore's elegant handwriting, Follow Fox. He will bring you where you need to be. APWBD, cryptic, Percy commented, reading over Harry's shoulder. But better than nothing. They quickly finished their breakfast and gathered their belongings. Nico moved slowly but insisted he was well enough to travel. Outside in the alley behind the leaky cauldron, Fox circled once overhead, then hovered before them, wings spread wide. I think we're supposed to grab hold, Harry guessed, reaching for the phoenix's tail feathers. Percy and Nico exchanged dubious glances but followed suit. The moment all 3 were touching the phoenix, flames engulfed them, not burning flames, but warm and comforting, like sinking into a hot bath. The world disappeared in a swirl of fire and then reformed into a circular office filled with strange silver instruments, portraits of sleeping old men and women, and bookshelves crammed with ancient tomes. Behind a massive claw-footed desk sat Albus Dumbledore, looking unsurprised to see 3 teenagers materialize in his office. Ah, excellent timing, he said, rising to greet them. I was just about to have tea. Professor, Harry began urgently, we've learned something important. About the dementors, and why they're appearing, and, Dumbledore raised a hand. All in good time, Harry. First, welcome to Hogwarts School of Witchcraft and Wizardry. Or more specifically, to the headmaster's office. Percy whistled, looking around at the magical instruments and moving portraits. Nice digs. Thank you, Mr. Jackson, Dumbledore smiled. I'm particularly fond of it myself. Now, please sit. You look as though you've had quite the adventure already. He conjured 3 comfortable chairs with a wave of his wand, impressing even Nico, who had seen his share of magical feats. Once they were seated with steaming cups of tea, Harry recounted everything, their encounter with Lucius Malfoy and the Dementors, the journey to the underworld, and Hades' revelation about the stolen helm of balance. The barrier between worlds is weakening, he concluded. And according to my father, the thief brought the helm here, to Hogwarts. Dumbledore's expression had grown increasingly grave as Harry spoke. This is most disturbing news. If what Lord Hades says is true, we face a greater threat than I anticipated. You believe us? Nico asked. About the helm? My dear boy, I have lived long enough to know that the most outlandish explanations are often the correct ones, Dumbledore said. And it would explain much about the recent increase in magical anomalies, creatures appearing where they should not, ancient wards failing, ghosts becoming more substantive. So who at Hogwarts could have taken it? Harry asked. And how did they even get to the underworld in the first place? As to how, there are ways for particularly powerful wizards to access realms beyond our own, Dumbledore said. Dangerous ways, involving dark magic that would leave traces. As to who? He sighed deeply. I have my suspicions, but no proof as yet. We need to search the castle, Percy said decisively. Find this helm before September 1st, or the worlds go boom, right? Eloquently put, Mr. Jackson, Dumbledore smiled faintly. And yes, that appears to be our deadline. Fortunately, the castle is mostly empty during summer, with only myself and a few staff in residence. So we can stay and look for it? Harry asked hopefully. I believe that would be wise, Dumbledore nodded. Though we must be discreet. If our thief realizes we're searching, they may accelerate their plans or move the helm elsewhere. Where do we even start? Nico asked. This place is huge. And filled with magic that might mask the helm's presence, Dumbledore added. But perhaps your connection to the underworld might help you sense it, Mr. D'Angelo. And you as well, Harry. Nico considered this. Maybe. Underworld objects have a certain signature. Especially powerful ones like this helm would. Then we shall begin our search immediately, Dumbledore decided. But first, you should rest and recover your strength. Particularly you, Mr. D'Angelo. Shadow travel across realms is no small feat. He rose and crossed to a cabinet, extracting a small vial of golden liquid. This is essence of ambrosia, safer for you than the solid form, but with the same healing properties. It should restore your energy. Nico accepted the vial gratefully, sipping the godly liquid. Color immediately returned to his face. Thank you, he said, sounding surprised by the headmaster's knowledge of demigod healing methods. Now, I've prepared quarters for you in Gryffindor Tower. I hope you don't mind sharing, as the other house's dormitories are closed for cleaning. Harry, I believe you'll be sorted into Gryffindor when term begins regardless, so consider it a preview. How do you know I'll be in Gryffindor? Harry asked curiously. Dumbledore's eyes twinkled. Just a hunch. Both your parents were Gryffindors, after all, your mother and James, he clarified. And you've already demonstrated considerable courage. What about us? Percy asked. We're not exactly wizards. A minor detail, Dumbledore waved dismissively. I've arranged for you to be registered as exchange students from Ilvermorny, the American Wizarding School. Mr. Jackson, you'll be a 6th year, while Mr. D'Angelo will join the 3rd years. And me? Harry asked. 1st year, naturally, Dumbledore said. Though with your particular background, I suspect you'll advance quickly in certain areas. A thought occurred to Harry. Sir, if we're staying until term starts, I'll need my school supplies. My list mentioned robes, books, a cauldron. Already arranged, Dumbledore assured him. Hagrid, our groundskeeper and a good friend of your parents, collected everything you'll need. Consider it a birthday present. Birthday? Harry blinked. July 31st, Dumbledore said gently. Today. It's my birthday. Harry repeated, stunned. The Dursleys had never celebrated his birthday, and in the chaos of recent days, he'd completely lost track of the date. Indeed it is, Dumbledore smiled. And what better gift than your first real view of Hogwarts? Come, I'll give you a proper tour. The tour of Hogwarts was nothing short of magical. Dumbledore led them through the castle's major areas, the Great Hall with its enchanted ceiling, the moving staircases, the library with its thousands of magical tomes, and the grounds including the Quidditch pitch, which required a lengthy explanation for Percy and Nico's benefit. So you fly on broomsticks chasing magic balls while other players try to knock you off. Percy summarized. And this is supposed to be safer than capture the flag at camp? Marginally, Dumbledore chuckled. Though our hospital wing stays quite busy during the season. Throughout the tour, Harry noticed both Nico and Dumbledore occasionally pausing, as if listening to something only they could hear. After the third such occurrence, he finally asked. There are many layers to Hogwarts, Dumbledore explained. The physical castle you see, the magic that sustains it, and other aspects. The history, the memories, the accumulated power of generations of magical learning. The dead, Nico added bluntly. This place is full of them. Not just the ghosts you can see, but impressions, memories, fragments of those who lived and died here. Indeed, Dumbledore nodded. Hogwarts has stood for over 1,000 years. Few places in Britain have seen more life, and death. Does that make it easier or harder to sense the helm? Percy asked practically. Harder, Nico admitted. There's so much magical background noise. But it also means there are more informants available, if you know how to listen. You can talk to the dead here? Harry asked, intrigued by this aspect of his powers he hadn't yet explored. In a way, Nico said. Not full conversations like with proper ghosts, but impressions, feelings, whispers. The dead know things the living often miss. A most useful talent for our current endeavor, Dumbledore observed. Now, let us continue to the dungeons. If something from the underworld were hidden in the castle, the deepest parts would be most suitable. The dungeons were cold and dimly lit, with rough stone walls that seemed to absorb both light and sound. As they descended, Harry felt a growing pressure, not uncomfortable, but noticeable, like the deepening weight of water when swimming down. You feel it too? Nico asked quietly, noticing Harry's expression. Like we're getting closer to something, Harry nodded. But it's faint. They explored the potions classrooms, storage rooms, and finally reached a blank stone wall that Dumbledore identified as the entrance to Slytherin House's dormitories. Could someone have hidden it in there? Percy asked. Possibly, Dumbledore acknowledged. But the house dormitories are magically sealed during summer. Even I cannot enter without specific cause and considerable magical effort. I don't think it's in there anyway, Harry said, concentrating on the feeling. It's somewhere else. Deeper. There are caves beneath the castle, Dumbledore said thoughtfully. Part of the original foundations. Few know of them now. That sounds promising, Percy said. Creepy underground caves. Classic hiding spot. Dumbledore led them down a series of increasingly narrow corridors, eventually stopping before what appeared to be a solid wall. He tapped a complex pattern with his wand, murmuring words too low to catch. The wall shimmered and became transparent, revealing a rough-hewn passage beyond. The Founder's Way, Dumbledore explained. Created by the 4 founders of Hogwarts to access the deepest parts of the castle in emergencies. Few headmasters have needed to use it. They entered the passage, which sloped steeply downward. The air grew colder and damper, with the distant sound of water dripping. Their wand lights cast long, dancing shadows on the walls. This is it, Nico said suddenly, stopping. We're getting close. I can feel the underworld energy. Harry nodded, feeling the same pull. It's definitely down here somewhere. The passage opened into a vast cavern, its ceiling lost in darkness. A pool of black water occupied the center, perfectly still and reflective as a mirror. Around the edges of the cavern stood ancient stone columns carved with symbols similar to those on Harry's key. "The heart of Hogwarts," Dumbledore said softly. "The natural cave upon which the castle was built." It said that Salazar Slytherin and Rowena Ravenclaw worked together to harness the magical properties of this place as the foundation for the school's wards. "The helm is here," Nico said confidently. "Or it was. Recently. But where exactly?" Percy asked, looking around the empty cavern. Harry approached the black pool cautiously. As he neared, he noticed the water wasn't actually water at all, but something thicker, more like liquid shadow. His key grew warm in his pocket. "I think," he began, pulling out the key. It was definitely hot now, almost vibrating with energy. "I think we need to look in there." "The pool?" Dumbledore asked sharply. "I wouldn't advise touching it, Harry. According to legend, it's a direct channel to the void between worlds." "Not touch it," Harry clarified. "But maybe." He held the key over the surface of the pool. The reaction was immediate. The liquid shadow began to swirl, forming a whirlpool that glowed with eerie blue light. Images appeared within the vortex, flashes of places and people. Harry saw the underworld, then Hogwarts' Great Hall, then a strange, misty forest where pale figures drifted between trees. "The in-between," Nico breathed. "Where souls go when they can't or won't move on." The vortex settled, revealing a final image, a turban-wearing man with a nervous expression, standing in what appeared to be a classroom, talking to himself. Or rather, talking to the back of his own head. Quirinus Quirrell, Dumbledore identified the man, his voice grave. "Our new defense against the dark arts, Professor." As they watched, Quirrell unwrapped his turban, revealing a horrifying sight on the back of his head, another face, chalk-white with glaring red eyes and slits for nostrils, like a snake given human form. "Voldemort," Harry whispered, somehow knowing with absolute certainty. The pool showed Quirrell/Voldemort placing something in a small chest, a helm of ancient design, crafted from what appeared to be solidified shadow and adorned with symbols of death. "The Helm of Balance," Nico confirmed. "He has it." The image shifted, showing Quirrell hiding the chest in a room filled with mirrors, hundreds of them, all reflecting the helm differently, creating a disorienting effect that made it impossible to tell which one contained the real chest. "The Mirror Maze," Dumbledore said. "A hidden room on the 3rd floor. It was designed as a training ground for advanced defensive magic, but has been sealed for decades." The pool went still and dark once more, the vision fading. "So we know who and where," Percy summarized. "This Quirrell guy, who's apparently got Voldemort stuck to the back of his head, which, by the way, is all kinds of messed up, has hidden the helm in a mirror maze on the 3rd floor." "Succinct as always, Mr. Jackson," Dumbledore nodded. "Though I confess, I had my suspicions about Quirrell ever since he returned from his year abroad. He claimed to have had a frightening encounter with vampires in Albania, which left him permanently nervous. But Albania is where rumors placed Voldemort's wraith after his fall." "So Voldemort is possessing him?" Harry asked. "A form of possession, yes," Dumbledore confirmed grimly. "Though more complete than any I've encountered before. It seems Voldemort is literally sharing Quirrell's body. And now they have a helm that controls the boundary between life and death," Nico said. "That can't be good. We need to get it back," Harry said firmly. "Now." "I agree time is of the essence," Dumbledore said, "but we must proceed with caution. If Quirrell realizes we know, he may flee with the helm or accelerate whatever plan he's developing." "What would Voldemort want with it, specifically?" Percy asked. "Besides the obvious, control life and death, thing. A new body, for one," Dumbledore theorized. "His current arrangement with Professor Quirrell appears to be temporary and likely painful for both parties. With the helm of balance, he could potentially craft himself a new physical form without the limitations of possession. Or raise an army of inferi, Harry added, recalling his reading about dark magic. Dead bodies reanimated to serve him. Or both, Nico said darkly. Plus, with control over the boundary between worlds, he could prevent his enemies from dying properly, trapping their souls in eternal torment. Cheery, Percy muttered. So what's our plan? We need to catch Quirrell off guard, Harry said thoughtfully. If he's already hidden the helm in this mirror maze, he probably checks on it regularly. Indeed, Dumbledore nodded. The mirrors are strongly warded. Part of their original purpose was to contain dangerous magical artifacts. He would need to physically visit to ensure the helm remains secure. So we wait for him to visit, follow him in, then jump him? Percy suggested. Too risky, Nico shook his head. In an environment like a mirror maze, he'd have the advantage, especially with Voldemort helping him. What if, Harry said slowly, we don't wait for him at all? What if we get to the helm first? Dumbledore's eyes twinkled. A preemptive strike. Bold, but potentially effective. Can you get us into this mirror maze? Harry asked. Yes, though it will require dismantling several of the original wards, Dumbledore said. Which will likely alert Quirrell that someone has accessed it. So we need to be quick, Percy nodded. Get in, grab the helm, get out before he can respond. There's just one problem, Nico pointed out. The vision showed the helm reflected in hundreds of mirrors. How do we find the real one? Harry's hand went to the key in his pocket. I think I know how. They left the underground cavern, making their way back up to the main castle and then to the third floor. Dumbledore led them to a corridor he explained was normally off-limits to students. The east wing of the third floor houses several specialized magical chambers, he explained. The mirror maze is the largest, originally created by Rowena Ravenclaw herself as a contemplation space. They stopped before a solid oak door bound with iron. Ancient runes were carved around the frame, glowing faintly blue. These are the warning wards, Dumbledore explained, examining them. When disturbed, they'll alert the castle's protections that someone is attempting entry. Can you disable them? Harry asked. Not without setting them off, Dumbledore said. But I can modify them, briefly, to recognize us as authorized entrants. He began a complex series of wand movements, murmuring in what sounded like Latin mixed with something far older. The runes flickered, changing from blue to green, then back to a softer blue. There, Dumbledore said, lowering his wand. We have approximately 30 minutes before the wards reset and alert Quirrell. He touched his wand to the lock, which clicked open with surprising ease. Remember, once inside, trust nothing your eyes tell you. The mirror maze was designed to confuse and disorient. The door swung open to reveal a chamber that seemed impossibly large for the space it should occupy. Mirrors of every size and shape lined the walls, ceiling, and much of the floor, creating endless reflections that stretched into infinity. The effect was immediately disorienting, as each mirror showed slightly different versions of reality. Stay close, Dumbledore warned as they entered. It's easy to become separated in here. Harry pulled out his key, which had grown warm again in proximity to the helm. I think we can use this to find it. In the vision, the key responded to the helm's energy. Good thinking, Percy nodded. Lead the way, Harry. Navigating the maze proved challenging. Pathways that appeared straight suddenly curved, mirrors that seemed to be reflections turned out to be actual passages, and their own reflections sometimes moved independently, walking in different directions. This place is seriously messing with my head, Percy complained after they'd been searching for what felt like hours but was probably only minutes. The key is getting warmer, Harry reported, holding it out before him like a compass. We're getting closer. They turned another corner and found themselves in a circular chamber where the mirrors formed a complete dome overhead. In the center stood a pedestal, and on it rested a small chest identical to the one they'd seen in the vision. That's it, Nico confirmed, his eyes fixed on the chest. I can feel the underworld energy from here. Wait, Dumbledore cautioned as Harry moved forward. It may be trapped. Harry paused, examining the pedestal more carefully. I don't see anything obvious. Use the key, Nico suggested. If it can unlock doors between worlds, a simple magical trap should be nothing. Harry approached carefully, holding the key before him. As he neared the pedestal, the room around them flickered, the mirrors momentarily showing not their reflections, but glimpses of other places. The underworld. Camp Half-Blood. Privet Drive. The cupboard under the stairs. The mirrors show fears and desires, Dumbledore observed. Another layer of protection. Harry ignored the disconcerting images, focusing on the chest. Up close, he could see it was made of some dark wood bound with bronze, inscribed with the same symbols as his key. A keyhole gleamed in the front, small and intricate. Taking a deep breath, he inserted the key. It slid in perfectly, turning with a satisfying click. The chest opened, revealing its contents, a helm of ancient design, crafted from what appeared to be solidified shadow, adorned with symbols of death and transition. The helm of balance, Nico breathed. It's really here. Harry reached for it cautiously, half expecting another trap to spring. But nothing happened as his fingers closed around the cool, surprisingly light material. He lifted it from the chest, feeling a strange resonance within him, as if the helm recognized him as Hades' son. Well done, Harry, Dumbledore said with approval. Now let us, I wouldn't do that if I were you, came a new voice, a strange, doubled voice that seemed to come from everywhere and nowhere. They spun around to find Professor Quirrell standing in the entrance to the chamber, his turban removed to reveal the horrifying face on the back of his head, Voldemort's face, somehow even more terrifying in person than in the vision. Potter, the face hissed, red eyes fixed on Harry. The famous boy who lived, now the son of death. How appropriate. Tom, Dumbledore said calmly, stepping forward. I wondered when we might meet again. Dumbledore, the face snarled. Always interfering. But you're too late. The helm is mine. Technically, it's my father's, Harry said, surprised by his own courage. And I'm returning it to him. Voldemort laughed, a high, cold sound that raised goosebumps on Harry's arms. Your father. Hades cares nothing for you, boy. You're a tool, nothing more. Just as your mother was. You're wrong, Harry said firmly, though the word struck closer to his fears than he liked. And you're not getting the helm. Bold words, Voldemort sneered. But you are a child playing with powers beyond your understanding. Quirrell, take it from him. Quirrell stepped forward, his body moving with a strange, puppet-like quality. Yes, master. Percy uncapped Riptide, the bronze sword glowing in the mirror chamber. You'll have to go through us first. Gladly, Quirrell smiled, raising his wand. Avada Kedavra. A jet of green light shot toward Percy, who instinctively raised Riptide to block it. To everyone's shock, the killing curse struck the celestial bronze and rebounded, shattering one of the mirrors behind them. Impossible. Voldemort hissed. No shield can block the killing curse. God metal, Percy grinned fiercely. Not your average shield. Taking advantage of their shock, Nico summoned shadows that surged toward Quirrell, wrapping around his legs. The possessed professor staggered but slashed his wand through the darkness, dispelling it with a burst of sickly green fire. Shadows against the Dark Lord. Voldemort laughed. I have walked the realm of death and returned. Your father's domain holds no terror for me. Perhaps not, Dumbledore said calmly, his own wand now raised. But I believe this might. He made a sweeping motion, and all the mirrors in the chamber suddenly reflected blinding light, focusing it on Quirrell/Voldemort like 100 suns. Quirrell screamed, his skin smoking where the light touched him. Enough! Voldemort roared. With a surge of dark power, Quirrell blasted the mirrors around him, sending razor-sharp shards flying in all directions. Dumbledore conjured a shield that protected them from the worst of it, but a few pieces got through. One sliced Harry's cheek, while another embedded itself in Percy's arm. Nico took a hit to his leg, staggering slightly. "The helm, Harry," Dumbledore urged quietly. "Use it." "How?" Harry asked desperately, holding the ancient artifact. "It responds to intent," Nico said through gritted teeth. "As Hades' son, it should recognize your commands." Harry raised the helm uncertainly. Quirrell was advancing through the shattered mirrors, wand raised for another attack. Voldemort's face wore an expression of twisted triumph. "Give me the helm, Potter," Voldemort commanded. "And I may let your friends live." Harry felt a strange certainty settle over him. The helm warmed in his hands, responding to his bloodline. He raised it higher. "By the power of the underworld and the authority of Hades," he intoned, words coming to him from nowhere and everywhere, "I command the barriers between worlds to strengthen." The helm blazed with dark purple light. A shockwave of power emanated from it, rippling through the chamber. Quirrell/Voldemort froze, suddenly caught in a web of shadowy energy that seemed to pull at them from all sides. "No!" Voldemort screamed. "What are you doing?" "Sending you back where you belong," Harry said firmly. "Between worlds, not fully alive, not fully dead. Where you can't hurt anyone." "You can't." Voldemort howled. "I am Lord Voldemort. I conquered death." "No one conquers death," Harry replied. "They only delay it." The shadowy energy intensified, wrapping around Quirrell's body like a cocoon. As they watched, Voldemort's face seemed to peel away from the back of Quirrell's head, becoming a wraith-like form that struggled against the binding shadows. "This isn't over, Potter." Voldemort's wraith shrieked as it was pulled into a tear in reality that had opened in the center of the chamber. "I will return. And when I do, all you love will perish." With a final, unearthly wail, the wraith was sucked through the tear, which sealed itself with a sound like thunder. Quirrell collapsed to the floor, unconscious but alive, the back of his head now smooth and ordinary. The chamber fell silent, save for their heavy breathing and the occasional tinkle of a mirror shard falling. "Well," Percy said finally, "that was dramatic." "Harry," Dumbledore said softly, "that was extraordinary magic. Few could have controlled the helm so effectively on first use." "I don't know how I did it," Harry admitted, the helm now cool and dormant in his hands. "The words just came to me." "Your birthright," Nico explained. "The helm recognized you as Hades' son." "Is Voldemort gone for good?" Harry asked hopefully. "No," Dumbledore said gravely. "You banished his wraith back to the in-between realm where it had been dwelling, but with his anchors still intact, he will eventually find another way to return." "Anchors?" Percy questioned. "A discussion for another time," Dumbledore deflected smoothly. "For now, we have accomplished our primary goal, retrieving the Helm of Balance before it could be fully utilized. We need to return it to my father," Nico said. "Before the barrier weakens further." "Agreed," Dumbledore nodded. "Though I suggest we leave the castle first. Hogwarts magic may interfere with your communication attempts." They made their way out of the shattered mirror maze, Dumbledore levitating the unconscious Quirrell behind them. Percy and Nico supported each other, both wounded from the flying glass, while Harry carried the helm carefully wrapped in his robe. In the hospital wing, they left Quirrell under the care of Madame Pomfrey, who asked remarkably few questions when Dumbledore explained he had suffered a magical backlash while working with an experimental defensive charm. Once Percy and Nico's wounds were treated, they gathered in the castle courtyard under the summer evening sky. "So how do we contact Hades?" Percy asked. "Iris message." "The helm itself should be enough," Nico said. "Now that we're away from the castle's strongest wards." Harry unwrapped the helm, holding it up to the fading sunlight. "Lord Hades," he called formally. "We've recovered your helm and request an audience." For a moment, nothing happened. Then shadows gathered before them, coalescing into the familiar form of the god of the dead, still immaculately dressed in his Italian suit. "My sons," Hades acknowledged, his dark eyes fixing immediately on the helm. "And Dumbledore. We meet at last." "Lord Hades," Dumbledore inclined his head respectfully. "An honor. Is it?" Hades raised an eyebrow. "I'm not accustomed to being honored by the living." "Feared, yes. Honored, rarely. Even we wizards know to respect the natural order of life and death," Dumbledore replied diplomatically. "Some more than others," Hades observed dryly. "Your former student Tom Riddle being a notable exception." "Former student, yes," Dumbledore agreed. "Though I fear his education continues in darker arts than we teach at Hogwarts." Hades turned to Harry, who still held the helm. "You have done well, my son. Few could have used the helm of balance as you did, with precision rather than brute force." "It seemed to guide me," Harry admitted. "The helm responds to those of my bloodline," Hades explained. "But it can overwhelm those without the strength to control it. You showed admirable restraint." "Thank you," Harry said, oddly moved by the compliment. He held out the helm. "I believe this belongs to you." Hades took it, the artifact seeming to rejoice at being reunited with its master. "With this restored, the boundary between worlds will stabilize. The dementors will be driven back to their proper place, unable to roam freely." "What about Voldemort?" Harry asked. "I banished him, but Dumbledore says he'll return." "Indeed he will," Hades confirmed grimly. "Tom Riddle has taken extraordinary measures to anchor his soul to the mortal realm. Measures that offend the natural order." "Horcruxes," Dumbledore said quietly. Hades' expression darkened further. "Yes. Soul fragments, hidden in objects. Abominations that prevent his complete death. Can't you just—" "I don't know, overrule that?" Percy asked. "Being the god of death and all." "I govern the realm of the dead, Perseus Jackson," Hades corrected. "But I cannot force death upon the living against the fate's decree. Especially when powerful magic has interfered with the natural order. So we'll have to find and destroy these Horcruxes," Harry realized. "A task for another day," Dumbledore said gently. "You have already accomplished more than anyone could reasonably expect, Harry." "Indeed," Hades agreed. "And you have earned a respite before your formal education begins." He turned to Nico. "You have also served well, my son. Your guidance was crucial to this quest's success." Nico straightened, surprise and pleasure flickering briefly across his face at the rare paternal approval. "Thank you, father. And you, Jackson," Hades addressed Percy, "continue to prove useful despite your irritating optimism. My brother chose his champion well, it seems." Thanks." Percy replied, uncertain if he'd been complimented or insulted. "What happens now?" Harry asked. "Now," Hades said, "I return the helm to its proper place in the underworld. The boundary between realms will be restored, though the damage done will take time to fully heal." "And us?" Nico asked. "You should return to camp," Hades advised. "All three of you. Rest, recover, and prepare. Harry will need additional training before he begins at Hogwarts." "I was rather hoping Mr. Jackson might consider extending his stay," Dumbledore said unexpectedly. "Perhaps as a transfer student for the coming year." Percy blinked in surprise. "Me? At wizard school?" "An unconventional suggestion, I admit," Dumbledore smiled. "But recent events have demonstrated the value of having diverse talents available. And I fear Voldemort's interest in Harry has only intensified now that he knows of his divine heritage." "You want me to be Harry's bodyguard," Percy realized. "I prefer to think of it as cultural exchange," Dumbledore's eyes twinkled. "But yes, essentially." Hades considered this. Unusual, but potentially wise. My brother Poseidon would need to approve, of course. I'll have to ask my mom too, Percy added. And Chiron. And probably Annabeth, if I don't want to get stabbed. I could speak with Chiron, Dumbledore offered. As for your mother, perhaps a visit might be arranged before term begins. Percy looked at Harry, who was watching him hopefully. Would I have to wear those pointy hats? Only on special occasions, Harry assured him. And I'd get to learn magic. Some aspects, Dumbledore qualified. Your demigod nature would limit certain magics, but enhance others. Percy sighed dramatically. Well, I was hoping for a quiet year for once. But sure, why not? Wizard school sounds marginally less dangerous than our usual quests. Excellent, Dumbledore beamed. We shall make arrangements. Hades nodded, seeming satisfied with the plan. Very well. I must return to my realm now. The helm's absence has created administrative challenges. Father, Harry said quickly before the god could vanish. Thank you. For the key, and for trusting me with this quest. Hades studied him, his expression softening almost imperceptibly. You have proven worthy of that trust, Harry Potter. Remember that you carry the legacy of both your parents, Lily's compassion and my power. Use both wisely. With that, he dissolved into shadows, taking the helm with him. Well, Percy said into the silence that followed, for a god of death, he's actually not the worst dad in the pantheon. High praise indeed, Dumbledore chuckled. Now, shall we return inside? I believe the house elves have prepared a special dinner in honor of Harry's birthday. As they walked back toward the castle, Harry felt a strange sense of peace despite the lingering threat of Voldemort's return. He had faced his first real challenge as both wizard and demigod, and he had succeeded. He had friends who stood by him, a brother in Nico, and even a father who, in his own distant way, seemed to approve of him. For the boy who had spent 10 years in a cupboard, it was more than he had ever dared hope for. Happy birthday, Harry, Percy said, clapping him on the shoulder. How does it feel to be 11? Harry looked up at Hogwarts Castle, its windows glowing with warm light against the darkening sky. Soon it would be filled with students, his classmates. His future. Like a new beginning, he said, and smiled. Chapter 3, Two worlds collide. The last 2 weeks of August flew by in a blur of training, preparation, and increasingly excited anticipation. Harry divided his time between practicing shadow manipulation with Nico, combat training with Percy, and devouring his first-year magical textbooks under Dumbledore's occasional guidance. You're getting good at this, Percy commented one evening as Harry successfully disarmed him for the 3rd time in a row. They were sparring on the Hogwarts grounds, the setting sun casting long shadows that Harry had learned to use to his advantage. I had good teachers, Harry grinned, twirling his Stygian iron sword with newfound confidence. Flattery will get you nowhere, Percy replied, capping Riptide back into pen form. But yeah, we're pretty awesome. Their temporary residence at Hogwarts had proven unexpectedly productive. With most of the staff away until term began, they had free run of the grounds and many of the castle's facilities. Dumbledore appeared occasionally to check on their progress or share a meal, but otherwise left them to their own devices. Nico had returned to Camp Half-Blood 3 days after their confrontation with Quirrell, needed for some underworld business that he refused to elaborate on. His parting words to Harry had been simple but meaningful, "You're doing well, brother. Keep practicing the shadow stuff. I'll see you at camp next summer." Percy, true to his word, had committed to staying for the school year. Dumbledore had arranged everything, a cover story as an American exchange student, special permission from the Ministry of Magic, which involved calling in several favors, according to the headmaster, and even a rushed visit to New York to meet with Percy's mother and Chiron. Mom was surprisingly cool with it, Percy had reported upon his return. Said it couldn't possibly be more dangerous than my usual summers. Chiron was more worried, but Dumbledore convinced him it was important for demigod-wizard relations or something. And Annabeth? Harry had asked knowingly. Percy's expression had been pained. Let's just say I owe her about 1,000,000 drachma calls and a really nice Christmas present. As September 1st approached, Harry found himself growing increasingly nervous. It was one thing to explore Hogwarts as an empty castle, it would be quite another to attend as a student, surrounded by peers who had grown up in the wizarding world. What if I'm terrible at magic? He worried aloud the night before term began. He and Percy were in Gryffindor Tower, which Dumbledore had assured them would indeed be Harry's house once sorted. Dude, you already did magic, Percy pointed out, lounging on one of the dormitory beds. That Patronus thing. The unlocking spell. Plus all the shadow stuff, which is like, bonus magic. That's different, Harry insisted. That was instinct or demigod powers. Actual classroom magic might be completely different. So you'll study, Percy shrugged. That's what Annabeth would say, anyway. Harry smiled, grateful for Percy's casual confidence. Over the past weeks, the son of Poseidon had become the older brother he'd never had, protective, encouraging, and occasionally annoying in exactly the right ways. Thanks for staying, Harry said suddenly. You didn't have to. Percy sat up, his expression unusually serious. Look, kid, I know what it's like to be thrown into a world you don't understand. When I found out I was a demigod, I had Grover and Annabeth looking out for me. Seems only fair to pay it forward. Still, Harry insisted, spending a year at wizard school wasn't exactly in your plans. Plans are overrated, Percy grinned. Besides, I'm actually looking forward to it. Magical education without the constant threat of camp activities sending me to the infirmary. Sounds like a vacation. Harry laughed, though he suspected Hogwarts might prove less relaxing than Percy imagined. Morning brought a flurry of activity as they prepared to join the arriving students. According to Dumbledore's instructions, they would travel to London and board the Hogwarts Express with everyone else to maintain their cover stories, Harry as a regular first-year student and Percy as a sixth-year exchange student from Ilvermorny. Remind me what I'm supposed to know about this American wizard school? Percy asked as they packed their trunks. Just the basics, Harry replied, having studied the information Dumbledore provided. Ilvermorny has 4 houses like Hogwarts, it's located on Mount Greylock in Massachusetts, and you were in Thunderbird House, which values adventure. Thunderbird, adventure, Massachusetts, Percy repeated. Got it. Though if anyone asks detailed questions, I'm blaming Magical Exchange Program confidentiality rules. They fled to the leaky cauldron. Percy's first experience with the magical transportation left him covered in soot and cursing in ancient Greek, and then took a taxi to King's Cross Station. The station was bustling with morning commuters, none of whom seemed to notice the occasional oddly dressed family with owl cages or oversized trunks. Platform 9 3/4, Harry read from his ticket. Between platforms 9 and 10, presumably. They found the correct area, watching discreetly as a family of redheads disappeared one by one through a solid brick wall. That's our cue, Harry murmured. Percy eyed the wall skeptically. You know, I'm getting really tired of magical transportation methods that involve crashing into solid objects. Despite his complaints, they passed through the barrier without incident, emerging onto a hidden platform where a gleaming scarlet steam engine waited amid clouds of white smoke. The platform teemed with students and parents, owls hooting, cats prowling, and tearful goodbyes being exchanged. Wow, Harry breathed, taking it all in. Despite weeks at Hogwarts, this was his first real immersion in wizard society. Yeah, Percy agreed, looking equally impressed. They really commit to the whole magical aesthetic, don't they? They found an empty compartment near the back of the train and stowed their trunks. Percy had insisted on bringing his own non-magical clothing in addition to the school robes, refusing to wear wizard pajamas during his free time. I should probably mingle with the other sixth years, Percy said as the train began to fill. Get my cover story established. You good here? Harry nodded, though his stomach fluttered with nerves. I'll be fine. Remember, Percy said, you've literally fought monsters and sent Voldemort packing. Regular wizard kids should be no problem. After Percy left to explore the train, Harry sat alone, watching the platform through the window. Families were making their final farewells, younger siblings complaining about being left behind, parents issuing last-minute instructions. It was a scene of normal back-to-school chaos, except for the wands and owls. The compartment door slid open, and a tall, gangly boy with bright red hair poked his head in. "Anyone sitting there?" he asked, pointing to the seat opposite Harry. "Everywhere else is full." "Go ahead," Harry invited, relieved to have company. The boy sat down, glancing curiously at Harry before looking away quickly, as if trying not to stare. "I'm Ron, by the way." "Ron Weasley." "Harry Potter," Harry replied, watching for the reaction he'd been warned to expect. Ron's eyes widened. "Are you really? I mean, do you have the—" He gestured vaguely to his forehead. Harry pushed back his hair to reveal the lightning-shaped scar. "Yeah." "Wicked," Ron breathed. "So is it true? You grew up with muggles. What were they like?" "Horrible," Harry said honestly. "Well, not all muggles. Just my aunt and uncle. They kept me in a cupboard." "A cupboard?" Ron looked horrified. "Blimey, that's awful." "I got rescued though," Harry added quickly. "By some friends." He wasn't sure how much to reveal about Camp Half-Blood or his demigod status. Dumbledore had advised discretion on that front. "That's good," Ron said, still looking shocked. "My family's all wizards. I'm the sixth in our family to go to Hogwarts." Their conversation flowed easily after that. Ron explained about his 5 older brothers and younger sister, while Harry shared carefully edited versions of his recent experiences. When the food trolley came by, Harry, flush with wizard gold from his newly accessed vault, bought a sampling of everything to share. "Bertie bots every flavor beans?" Harry asked, examining a colorful box. "They mean every flavor," Ron warned. "There's chocolate and peppermint, but also spinach, liver, and tripe. My brother George reckons he got a bogey-flavored one once." Harry picked out a green bean, cautiously nibbled the edge, and promptly spat it out. "Ugh. Grass." Ron laughed, and Harry found himself joining in. For the first time, he was having a normal interaction with someone his own age, no monsters, no prophecies, no world-ending threats. Just 2 boys eating candy on a train. The compartment door slid open again to reveal a girl with bushy brown hair and rather large front teeth. "Has anyone seen a toad?" "A boy named Neville's lost one." "No toads here," Ron replied. "Just chocolate frogs trying to escape." The girl's attention shifted to the wand in Ron's hand. "Oh, are you doing magic?" "Let's see, then." Ron looked taken aback but cleared his throat. "Sunshine, daisies, buttermellow, turn this stupid, fat rat yellow." He pointed his wand at the sleeping rat on his lap, but nothing happened. "Are you sure that's a real spell?" the girl asked skeptically. "It's not very good, is it? I've tried a few simple spells myself, and they've all worked for me." She sat down next to Harry, focusing on him with unsettling intensity. "I'm Hermione Granger, by the way." "And you are?" "Ron Weasley," Ron muttered, looking annoyed. "Harry Potter," Harry said. Hermione's eyes widened. "Are you really?" "I know all about you, of course. I got a few extra books for background reading, and you're in modern magical history and the rise and fall of the dark arts and great wizarding events of the 20th century." "Am I?" Harry asked, surprised. "Of course. You're famous. Didn't you know?" Something about Hermione's analytical approach seemed familiar to Harry. Her gray eyes were sharp and calculating, reminding him powerfully of. "You remind me of someone," Harry said before he could stop himself. "A friend from America." "Oh. Who?" Hermione asked, curiosity piqued. "Her name's Annabeth," Harry said carefully. She's really smart too. Loves architecture and, Greek mythology. A strange expression flickered across Hermione's face, recognition, perhaps, or wariness. Before Harry could analyze it, she stood up abruptly. I'd better go look for Neville's toad. You two should change into your robes. I expect we'll be arriving soon. At the doorway, she turned back to Ron. You've got dirt on your nose, by the way. Just there. She pointed and then disappeared. Whatever house I'm in, I hope she's not in it, Ron grumbled, rubbing his nose. But Harry was deep in thought, turning over an unexpected suspicion in his mind. The gray eyes, the analytical approach, the intense intelligence. Hermione Granger reminded him powerfully of Annabeth Chase, daughter of Athena. Could it be possible that the wizarding world contained more demigods than anyone realized? The train journey continued as countryside flashed past the windows. Ron explained the 4 Hogwarts houses, wizard sports, and the basics of magical society, while Harry listened with genuine interest, filing away information that might be useful. Eventually, the compartment door slid open once more, revealing a pale boy flanked by 2 larger, thuggish-looking companions. Harry recognized the newcomer from Madame Malkin's robe shop in Diagon Alley, where they'd had a brief, awkward encounter during Harry's shopping trip with Hagrid. Is it true? The boy asked. They're saying all down the train that Harry Potter's in this compartment. So it's you, is it? Yes, Harry replied, studying the boy cautiously. This is Crabbe and Goyle, the boy introduced his companions carelessly. And I'm Malfoy. Draco Malfoy. Ron coughed, poorly disguising a snigger. Malfoy shot him a look of disdain. Think my name's funny, do you? No need to ask who you are. Red hair, freckles, and second-hand robes, you must be a Weasley. Harry tensed, recognizing the surname Malfoy from their encounter with Lucius in London. Like father, like son, apparently. You'll soon find out that some wizarding families are better than others, Potter, Draco continued. You don't want to go making friends with the wrong sort. I can help you there. He extended his hand, but Harry didn't take it. I think I can tell the wrong sort for myself, thanks, he said coolly. Draco's pale cheeks flushed pink. I'd be careful if I were you, Potter. Unless you're a bit politer, you'll go the same way as your parents. They didn't know what was good for them either. Harry stood up, a cold anger flowing through him. The shadows in the compartment deepened slightly, responding to his emotion. Say that again, he challenged, his voice quiet but dangerous. Draco took an involuntary step back, his eyes widening at something he saw in Harry's face, or perhaps at the unnatural darkening of the compartment. Going to fight us, are you? He sneered, trying to recover his composure. Unless you leave right now, Harry confirmed. He hadn't drawn his wand, he didn't need to. The son of Hades stood his ground, letting just a touch of his divine heritage show in his stance and expression. Something in that moment, perhaps Harry's utter confidence, perhaps the subtle darkening of the shadows, made Draco reconsider. Come on, he muttered to his cronies, and they retreated hastily. The shadows returned to normal as Harry sat down, suddenly aware of Ron's stunned expression. That was brilliant. Ron exclaimed. But what happened with the lights? They seemed to dim when you got angry. Just a passing cloud, probably, Harry deflected. So, you were telling me about Quidditch? Ron happily launched back into his explanation of the wizard sport, the strange incident apparently forgotten. By the time the train began slowing for arrival, they were chatting like old friends. Percy reappeared as they prepared to disembark, now wearing his school robes over jeans, a compromise he'd insisted on. How's it going, kid? Made some friends? This is Ron Weasley, Harry introduced them. Ron, this is Percy Jackson. He's an exchange student from America. Wicked. Ron said, eyes wide. We never get exchange students. What's America like? Less rainy, Percy replied with a grin. And with better pizza. They stepped off the train into the cool night air of Hogsmeade Station. A familiar voice boomed over the crowd, "Fur's years. Fur's years over here." Hagrid, the enormous groundskeeper who had first introduced Harry to Diagon Alley, stood waving a lantern. He beamed when he spotted Harry. "All right there, Harry. See you at the castle," Percy said, squeezing Harry's shoulder before heading toward the carriages with the older students. Harry and Ron joined the other first years following Hagrid down a steep, narrow path that led to a fleet of small boats on the shore of a vast lake. The castle loomed above them, windows sparkling against the starry sky. "No more and 4 to a boat," Hagrid called. Harry and Ron were joined by Neville, the toadless boy, and Hermione Granger, who still regarded Harry with that curious, analytical expression. As the fleet of boats glided across the glassy lake, Harry found himself in the unusual position of already knowing their destination intimately. He'd spent weeks exploring Hogwarts with Percy and Nico, yet seeing it from this perspective, as a first-year student approaching for the first time, gave him a fresh appreciation for its majesty. "It's incredible," Hermione whispered beside him, her face upturned to the castle. "I've read all about the enchantments that maintain it, of course, but seeing it. Some things you have to experience firsthand," Harry agreed. Hermione turned to him, a strange recognition in her eyes. "Yes," she said softly. "Exactly." They reached the underground harbor and climbed a passage up to the castle's massive oak front doors. Professor McGonagall, whom Harry had met briefly during his summer stay, waited to escort them inside. If she recognized Harry from his earlier residence, she gave no sign of it. After a brief explanation of the house system, she left them in a small chamber off the Great Hall to await the sorting ceremony. "How exactly do they sort us?" Harry asked Ron, keeping up the pretense of ignorance. "Some kind of test, I think. Fred said it hurts a lot, but I think he was joking." Nearby, Hermione was whispering very fast about all the spells she'd learned and wondering which one she'd need. Harry caught her eye and smiled reassuringly, which seemed to surprise her. When the ghosts arrived, floating through the back wall and startling many of the first years, Harry watched with interest. As a son of Hades, he could sense subtle differences between these wizard ghosts and the spirits he'd encountered in the underworld. These seemed more intact, somehow. More present in the mortal realm. Finally, Professor McGonagall returned to lead them into the Great Hall. Despite having seen it before, Harry was still impressed by the enchanted ceiling showing the night sky above, the thousands of floating candles, and the 4 long house tables filled with students. The sorting hat sang its song, explaining the 4 houses and their values. Then, one by one, students were called forward to be sorted. Granger, Hermione. Hermione almost ran to the stool and jammed the hat eagerly on her head. Harry watched intently, his suspicion growing. Gryffindor, the hat shouted after nearly a minute. As Hermione removed the hat, her eyes met Harry's across the hall. Something passed between them, a moment of recognition, perhaps, or shared understanding. Then she hurried to the Gryffindor table, where Percy was already seated, watching the proceedings with barely concealed amusement. More students were sorted until finally, "Potter, Harry." Whispers broke out across the hall as Harry stepped forward. "Potter, did she say? The Harry Potter?" The hat dropped over his eyes, blocking his view of the curious stares. Said a small voice in his ear. "Difficult. Very difficult. Plenty of courage, I see. Not a bad mind either. There's talent, oh my goodness, yes, and a nice thirst to prove yourself, now that's interesting. But what's this? A son of Hades? How extraordinary. I haven't sorted a demigod in decades, and never one of the big 3. Harry gripped the edges of the stool. "You know about demigods?" "My dear boy, I was created by the founders over 1,000 years ago. Godric Gryffindor himself was a son of Zeus, though that's not widely known. Now, where to put you? Slytherin could help you to greatness, no doubt about that. Not Slytherin, Harry thought firmly. No. Are you sure? You could be great, you know, it's all here in your head, and Slytherin would help you on the way to greatness, no doubt about that, no? Well, if you're sure, better be Gryffindor. The last word was shouted to the hall. Harry removed the hat to the loudest cheer yet, relief flooding through him. Percy was standing, clapping and whistling, while the Weasley twins chanted, "We got Potter. We got Potter." Harry took his seat next to Hermione, who gave him a curious smile. Across the table, Percy winked at him. "Knew you'd end up here," Percy said. "All the troublemakers do." "Is that why you're here?" Harry asked innocently. "Technically, I just sat down where they told me to," Percy grinned. "But yeah, probably." The sorting continued, with Ron joining them in Gryffindor to Harry's delight. Once the last student was sorted, Dumbledore rose to his feet, arms spread wide in welcome. "Welcome," he said, eyes twinkling behind his half-moon spectacles. "Welcome to a new year at Hogwarts. Before we begin our banquet, I would like to say a few words, nitwit. Blubber. Oddment. Tweak. Thank you." He sat back down to cheers and applause. Harry laughed, catching the headmaster's wink in his direction. "Is he a bit mad?" Ron asked uncertainly. "Mad?" said Percy solemnly. "He's brilliant. Pass the potatoes." The feast appeared magically on the golden plates before them, more food than Harry had ever seen. As they ate, conversations bubbled around them. Percy regaled nearby students with heavily edited tales of American wizard school, while Ron explained about his large family. Hermione, however, was watching Harry with that same calculating expression. Finally, she leaned close and whispered, "You're like me, aren't you?" Harry nearly choked on his pumpkin juice. "What do you mean?" he whispered back. "Different," she said, her gray eyes intense. "Not just a wizard. Something more." Harry hesitated. Dumbledore had cautioned discretion about his demigod status, but Hermione seemed to already know something. "Maybe we should talk about this somewhere more private," he suggested. She nodded, satisfied. "I knew it. Ever since the train, when you mentioned your American friend who likes Greek architecture. That wasn't subtle, you know." "I wasn't trying to be," Harry admitted. "You reminded me of her immediately." "Daughter of Athena?" Hermione guessed, her voice barely audible. Harry's eyes widened in confirmation. "And you?" "The same," she nodded. "Though I only found out this summer. A satyr found me after I caused a disturbance at the British Library. Apparently, accidentally activating ancient Greek artifacts is a common sign. But you're going to Hogwarts, not Camp Half-Blood. My parents insisted on a proper education," she explained. "Professor Dumbledore worked something out. I'm supposed to attend camp next summer." Harry grinned, delighted to discover another demigod at Hogwarts. "That's brilliant. Percy will be thrilled." He stopped, suddenly cautious. "Percy Jackson, not Percy Weasley." "I figured," Hermione smiled. "The way he carries himself isn't exactly subtle either. Son of Poseidon, right? I've read about the recent Titan War. He was quite central to it." "You've done your homework," Harry said, impressed. "I always do," she replied matter-of-factly. "Knowledge is power, especially for children of Athena." Their conversation was interrupted by Dumbledore rising again to make start-of-term announcements. Most were routine, forbidden items, Quidditch trials, but one caught Harry's attention. "The third-floor corridor on the right-hand side is out of bounds to everyone who does not wish to die a very painful death," Dumbledore said seriously. Harry exchanged glances with Percy. They knew exactly what was hidden there, not just the mirror maze where they'd confronted Quirrell, but a series of additional protections Dumbledore had installed afterward, guarding something called the Philosopher's Stone. During his summer stay, Harry had overheard enough to understand that the stone was a legendary magical artifact capable of producing the elixir of life and transforming metal into gold. After Quirrell's attempted theft of the Helm of Balance, Dumbledore had arranged for the stone to be moved from Gringotts to Hogwarts for safekeeping. And finally, Dumbledore continued, I would like to welcome a special guest to Hogwarts this year, our first exchange student from Ilvermorny School of Witchcraft and Wizardry in North America, Mr. Percy Jackson. Percy stood awkwardly as the hall's attention turned to him. Thanks. Looking forward to learning about British magic and stuff, he managed, generating scattered applause and curious murmurs. As they were dismissed to their dormitories, Harry felt a surge of contentment. He'd been sorted into Gryffindor, made friends with Ron, discovered Hermione was a fellow demigod, and had Percy nearby for support. For the boy who'd spent 10 years sleeping in a cupboard, it was like stepping into a dream. Classes began the next morning, plunging them into the world of magical education. Harry quickly discovered that being famous in the wizarding world had significant drawbacks. Whispers and stares followed him everywhere, making it impossible to blend in as he'd hoped. Just ignore them, Percy advised as they walked to breakfast on the third day, passing yet another group of gawking students. Trust me, they'll find something new to obsess over soon enough. Speaking from experience? Harry asked. Hero of Olympus, remember? Percy grinned. Camp wouldn't shut up about it for months. Then the Stoll brothers filled the Aphrodite cabin with chocolate Easter bunnies, and suddenly I was old news. Maybe I should arrange a prank, Harry mused. That's the spirit, Percy approved. Though maybe wait until you've learned enough magic to pull it off properly. Fitting in at Hogwarts proved challenging for Percy as well, though in different ways. His ADHD made sitting through lengthy lectures difficult, and his dyslexia complicated the reading assignments. However, he excelled in defense against the dark arts and anything practical rather than theoretical. Professor Flitwick wants to know why I keep holding my wand like a sword, Percy complained one evening in the common room. Force of habit, I guess. At least you're not setting things on fire like Seamus, Harry pointed out, nodding toward their classmate, who had once again managed to cinch his eyebrows during a simple spell. Most classes intrigued Harry, though some professors left stronger impressions than others. Tiny Professor Flitwick squeaked and fell off his stack of books when he reached Harry's name during roll call. Professor McGonagall proved strict but fair, transforming her desk into a pig and back to demonstrate the power of transfiguration. Professor Binns, the ghost teacher, droned on about goblin rebellions while most students struggled to stay awake. Defense against the dark arts, which Harry had particularly looked forward to, proved disappointing. Professor Quirrell, seemingly recovered from his possession by Voldemort, taught the class with a pronounced stutter and jumping at sudden noises. Only Harry, Percy, and Dumbledore knew the true reason for his nervous demeanor, the trauma of having hosted the Dark Lord in his own body. Do you think he remembers everything? Harry whispered to Percy after a particularly stilted lesson. Dumbledore said he modified his memories, Percy replied quietly. He thinks the turban burned up in a defensive spell backfire. Better for everyone that way. Friday brought their first potions lesson with Professor Snape, head of Slytherin House. Harry had been warned by both Percy and the Weasley twins that Snape favored his own house and particularly disliked Gryffindors. Just keep your cool, Percy advised before Harry headed to the dungeons. Don't give him any excuse to dock points. This proved easier said than done. From the moment Harry entered the classroom, Snape fixed him with a look of deep dislike. During roll call, he paused at Harry's name. Ah, yes, he said softly, Harry Potter. Our new celebrity. Draco Malfoy and his friends sniggered behind their hands. Snape finished calling names and looked up at the class, his eyes cold and empty. You are here to learn the subtle science and exact art of potion making, he began in barely more than a whisper. The class hung on his every word as he described bottling fame and brewing glory. Then, without warning, Potter. What would I get if I added powdered root of asphodel to an infusion of wormwood? Hermione's hand shot into the air, but Harry frowned, thinking. He'd read his textbooks over the summer, but this seemed like advanced knowledge. "I don't know, sir," he admitted. Snape's lips curled into a sneer. "Fame clearly isn't everything. Let's try again. Where would you look if I told you to find me a bezoar?" Again, Hermione stretched her hand high, but Harry remained calm. This one he did know, thanks to his extra reading. "In the stomach of a goat, sir," he answered steadily. "It's a stone that will save you from most poisons." Snape looked momentarily surprised before his expression hardened again. "Correct," he said grudgingly. "And what is the difference between monkshood and wolfsbane?" Hermione was practically standing now, hands straining toward the ceiling, but Harry met Snape's gaze without flinching. "They're the same plant, sir," he said. "Also called aconite." The dungeon fell silent. Snape's black eyes bored into Harry's green ones, something unreadable flickering in their depths. "Indeed," he finally said. "Well, why aren't you all copying that down?" There was a sudden rummaging for quills and parchment. Over the noise, Snape added, "And a point to Gryffindor for Potter's correct answers. Don't expect such generosity in the future." The class stared in shock. Snape giving points to Gryffindor? Unheard of. "I think you broke him," Ron whispered as they began brewing a simple boil-cure potion. The lesson continued with Snape criticizing almost everyone except Malfoy, whom he seemed to favor. But he largely ignored Harry, which felt like a victory of sorts. As they climbed out of the dungeons later, Harry wondered about Snape's initial hostility and subsequent grudging point award. It wasn't friendship or even approval, but something had shifted when Harry had answered correctly instead of being intimidated. "Snape gave you a point?" Percy said incredulously when Harry recounted the lesson at lunch. "The twins told me he'd rather eat his own cauldron than award points to Gryffindor." Harry stood his ground, Hermione explained proudly. "Very Athena-like approach, actually. Knowledge as the best defense." Ron looked between them, confused. "What's Athena got to do with anything?" "Greek mythology," Hermione said quickly. "We were just comparing the situation to classical stories." "Right," Ron said, clearly unconvinced but unwilling to pursue it. "Anyway, wait till you see the notice board, flying lessons start next Thursday. Gryffindor and Slytherin together." "Great," Harry groaned. "Just what I need, to make a fool of myself on a broomstick in front of Malfoy." "You don't know you'll make a fool of yourself," Ron reasoned. "Anyway, Malfoy talks big about Quidditch, but I bet it's all talk." This didn't reassure Harry much. Flying on a broomstick wasn't covered in any of his demigod or wizard training so far. "You'll be fine," Percy said confidently. "You've got good reflexes. Besides, I'm not allowed anywhere near the flying lessons after what happened during my test flight." "What happened?" Harry asked warily. Percy grinned sheepishly. "Let's just say Madame Hooch now believes Ilvermorny uses a completely different flying technique that's incompatible with British brooms. Also, the Whomping Willow has a personal vendetta against me." The week passed quickly, filled with classes, homework, and the occasional late-night training session where Percy helped Harry practice combat skills in abandoned classrooms. Hermione often joined them, proving remarkably adept at combining magical theory with practical demigod training. The wand movements and charms are actually similar to Greek sword techniques, she observed during one session. It's all about precision and intent. Thursday arrived, bringing with it their first flying lesson. At 3:30 that afternoon, the Gryffindors hurried down the front steps onto the grounds. The Slytherins were already there, and so were 20 broomsticks lying in neat lines on the ground. Madame Hooch, their instructor, arrived shortly. She had short, gray hair and yellow eyes like a hawk. "Well, what are you all waiting for?" she barked. "Everyone stand by a broomstick. Come on, hurry up." Harry glanced down at his broom. It was old and some of the twigs stuck out at odd angles. "Stick out your right hand over your broom," called Madame Hooch at the front, "and say, 'Up.'" "Up," everyone shouted. Harry's broom jumped into his hand at once, but it was one of the few that did. Hermione's had simply rolled over, and Neville's hadn't moved at all. They moved on to mounting their brooms, with Madame Hooch correcting grips and stances. Harry was pleased when she told Malfoy he'd been doing it wrong for years. "Now, when I blow my whistle, you kick off from the ground, hard," said Madame Hooch. "Keep your broom steady, rise a few feet, and then come straight back down by leaning forward slightly. On my whistle, 3, 2, but Neville, nervous and jumpy, pushed off before the whistle touched Madame Hooch's lips. He rose straight up like a cork shot out of a bottle, 12 feet, 20 feet. Harry saw his scared white face look down at the ground falling away, saw him gasp, slip sideways off the broom and, Harry didn't think. He reacted on instinct, calling on his powers as a son of Hades. He couldn't control living things like Percy could water, but he could manipulate shadows. As Neville fell, Harry reached out with his mind, thickening the shadows beneath the boy, slowing his descent just enough that when he hit the ground, it was with a thud rather than a crack. "Are you all right?" Harry asked, rushing to Neville's side. "Just winded," Neville gasped, looking stunned. "I should have broken something from that height." Madame Hooch hurried over, her face as white as Neville's. "Extraordinary," she muttered, checking him over. "A lucky landing indeed. Come along, boy, let's have you checked by Madame Pomfrey just in case." She turned to the rest of the class. "None of you is to move while I take this boy to the hospital wing. You leave those brooms where they are or you'll be out of Hogwarts before you can say Quidditch. Come on, dear." No sooner were they out of earshot than Draco Malfoy burst into laughter. "Did you see his face, the great lump?" "Shut up, Malfoy," snapped Parvati Patil. "Boo, sticking up for Longbottom," said Pansy Parkinson, a hard-faced Slytherin girl. "Never thought you'd like fat little crybabies, Parvati." "Look!" Malfoy said suddenly, darting forward and snatching something from the grass. "It's that stupid thing Longbottom's Gran sent him." The remembrall glittered in the sun as he held it up. "Give that here, Malfoy," said Harry quietly, stepping forward. The shadows around his feet deepened slightly, responding to his rising anger. Everyone stopped talking to watch. Malfoy smiled nastily. "I think I'll leave it somewhere for Longbottom to find, how about up a tree?" "Give it here." Harry yelled, but Malfoy had leapt onto his broomstick and taken off. Hovering level with the topmost branches of a nearby oak, he called, "Come and get it, Potter." Harry grabbed his broom. Blood pounded in his ears. He mounted the broom and kicked hard against the ground. And then, miraculously, he was flying. Air rushed through his hair, his robes whipped out behind him, and in a rush of fierce joy, he realized he'd found something he could do without being taught. This was wonderful. He pulled his broomstick up a little to take it even higher and heard screams and gasps from the girls and Ron's admiring whoop. He turned his broomstick sharply to face Malfoy in midair. Malfoy looked stunned. "Give it here," Harry called, "or I'll knock you off that broom." "Oh, yeah." Malfoy tried to sneer, but he looked worried. Harry leaned forward and grasped the broom tightly, shooting toward Malfoy like a javelin. Malfoy only just got out of the way in time. Harry made a sharp about-face and held the broom steady. "No Crab and Goyle up here to save your neck, Malfoy," Harry taunted. The same thought seemed to have struck Malfoy. "Catch it if you can, then," he shouted, throwing the glass ball high into the air before streaking back toward the ground. Harry saw, as though in slow motion, the ball rise up in the air and then start to fall. He leaned forward and pointed his broom handle down. Next second he was gathering speed in a steep dive, racing the ball. Wind whistled in his ears, mingled with the screams of people watching. He stretched out his hand. A foot from the ground he caught it, just in time to pull his broom straight, and he toppled gently onto the grass with the remembrall clutched safely in his fist. Harry Potter. His heart sank faster than he'd just dived. Professor McGonagall was running toward them. "Never, in all my time at Hogwarts, she was almost speechless with shock, and her glasses flashed furiously. "How dare you, might have broken your neck, it wasn't his fault, Professor." "Be quiet, Miss Patil." "But Malfoy, that's enough, Mr. Weasley. Follow me, Potter." Harry caught sight of Malfoy, Crabbe, and Goyle's triumphant faces as he left, walking numbly in Professor McGonagall's wake. He was going to be expelled, he just knew it. To his surprise, McGonagall led him not to her office or Dumbledore's, but to a classroom where she asked Professor Flitwick if she could borrow Wood for a moment. Oliver Wood turned out to be a burly fifth-year boy who emerged from Flitwick's class looking confused. "Potter, this is Oliver Wood." "Wood, I've found you a seeker." Wood's expression changed from puzzlement to delight. "Are you serious, Professor?" "Absolutely," said Professor McGonagall crisply. "The boy's a natural. I've never seen anything like it." "Was that your first time on a broomstick, Potter?" Harry nodded silently. "He caught that thing in his hand after a 50-foot dive," Professor McGonagall told Wood. "Didn't even scratch himself. Charlie Weasley couldn't have done it." Wood looked as though all his dreams had come true at once. "Ever seen a game of Quidditch, Potter?" he asked excitedly. "Wood's captain of the Gryffindor team," Professor McGonagall explained. "He's just the build for a seeker, too," said Wood, walking around Harry and examining him. "Light, speedy, we'll need to get him a decent broom, Professor, a Nimbus 2000 or a Clean Sweep 7, I'd say. I shall speak to Professor Dumbledore and see if we can't bend the first-year rule. Heaven knows, we need a better team than last year. Flattened in that last match by Slytherin, I couldn't look Severus Snape in the face for weeks." Professor McGonagall peered sternly over her glasses at Harry. "I want to hear you're training hard, Potter, or I may change my mind about punishing you." Then she suddenly smiled, an expression Harry had rarely seen on her strict face. "Your father would have been proud. He was an excellent Quidditch player himself." The news of Harry joining the Gryffindor Quidditch team spread quickly, despite Wood's attempts to keep it secret. That evening in the common room, Percy clapped him on the shoulder with obvious pride. "Youngest seeker in a century," he grinned. "That's got to be some kind of record." "I'm not sure I deserve it," Harry admitted quietly. "I broke the rules." "Rules are made to be broken," Percy shrugged. "Or bent. Or creatively reinterpreted. Besides, you were standing up for a friend." "That's what I told him," Ron agreed enthusiastically. "Anyway, Malfoy's the one who should be in trouble." "Speaking of Malfoy," Hermione said, joining their huddle by the fire, "he looked furious at dinner." "I'd watch out if I were you, Harry." As if summoned by her warning, Malfoy approached their group, flanked as usual by Crabbe and Goyle. "Enjoying your last evening, Potter? When are you getting the train back to the Muggles?" "You're a lot braver now you're back on the ground with your little friends," Harry observed coolly. "I'd take you on any time on my own," Malfoy sneered. "Tonight, if you want. Wizard's duel. Wands only, no contact." "What's the matter? Never heard of a wizard's duel before, I suppose?" "Of course he has," Ron interjected, standing beside Harry. "I'm his second." "Who's yours?" Malfoy sized up Crabbe and Goyle. "Crabbe," he decided. "Midnight, all right. We'll meet you in the trophy room, that's always unlocked." As Malfoy strutted away, Percy folded his arms, looking distinctly unimpressed. "You know that's a trap, right? He'll tell Filch or a teacher you're planning to be out of bounds at midnight." "How do you know?" Ron challenged. Percy sighed. "Because it's exactly what I would have done at his age if I didn't like someone. Except with monsters instead of teachers." "He's right," Hermione nodded. "It's a setup. Malfoy has no intention of meeting you." Harry considered this. Part of him wanted to rise to Malfoy's bait, but his demigod training had taught him to recognize tactical disadvantages. "So what do we do? Ignore him?" Or, Percy suggested, a mischievous gleam in his eye, we set a counter-trap. This proved unnecessary. At breakfast the next morning, as Harry was telling Ron he'd decided against the midnight duel, the mail arrived. Harry, who normally received nothing, was surprised when 6 large screech owls carried a long, thin package into the hall and dropped it right in front of him, knocking his bacon to the floor. Another owl followed, dropping a letter on top of the parcel. Harry opened the letter first. Do not open the parcel at the table. It contains your new Nimbus 2000, but I don't want everybody knowing you've got a broomstick or they'll all want one. Oliver Wood will meet you tonight on the Quidditch field at 7 o'clock for your first training session. Professor M. McGonagall. Harry handed the note to Ron, feeling a rush of excitement. A Nimbus 2000, Ron moaned enviously. I've never even touched one. They left the hall quickly, wanting to unwrap the broomstick in private before their first class, but halfway across the entrance hall they found the way upstairs barred by Crabbe and Goyle. Malfoy seized the package from Harry and felt it. That's a broomstick, he said, throwing it back to Harry with a mixture of jealousy and spite on his face. You'll be in for it this time, Potter. First years aren't allowed them. Ron couldn't resist. It's not any old broomstick. It's a Nimbus 2000. What did you say you've got at home, Malfoy? A Comet 260. He grinned at Harry. Comets look flashy, but they're not in the same league as the Nimbus. What would you know about it, Weasley? You couldn't afford half the handle, Malfoy snapped. I suppose you and your brothers have to save up twig by twig. Before Ron could answer, Professor Flitwick appeared at Malfoy's elbow. Not arguing, I hope, boys, he squeaked. Potter's been sent a broomstick, Professor, Malfoy said quickly. Yes, that's right, said Professor Flitwick, beaming at Harry. Professor McGonagall told me all about the special circumstances, Potter. And what model is it? A Nimbus 2000, sir, said Harry, fighting not to laugh at the look of horror on Malfoy's face. And it's really something went wrong with this response, please try again. Move forward and begin the next chapter. The end. Thank you for watching this video. Please be sure to subscribe to our channel and like this video.